replace some tires because you might not want to let people use the blade on board and look up further here tonight because once he's done, there'll be a little bit of an
when the next caution should come
tires
up,
on the road. This is a race car number 6, quite a bit of tires. And
so now every one of these drivers has gone off their road and we have
It's going to be a blast, and my gosh, can we not wait for that one.
Hello everyone, welcome live to 3Y TV in the Lone Star State here tonight for the Dirty Bird Sim Racing 250 here at the famed Texas Motor Speedway. I'm Peter Short, the professional blabbermouth, alongside Carlos Acosta, the professional speller here tonight. It'll be Carlos and I for all 250 miles around Texas Motor Speedway. And I'll tell you what here, Carlos, they say no limits Texas. Well, we're not going to have any limits here tonight on the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series as these drivers try to tame this mile-and-a-half racetrack.
What's the limit, Peter?
Well, are we talking about calculus or not? Hopefully we're not.
Are we doing math? Oh, that's the wrong button. That's also the wrong button.
We're not doing math just yet. We're not doing math just yet. We
just started the broadcast.
We'll just introduce it. Yes, we'll work our way up to that. But big shout out to Dirty Bird Sim Racing for jumping on board and sponsoring tonight's race in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. But I'll tell you what, Carlos, we have seen a couple of drivers, Scott Eckridge and Greg Evans, be toe-to-toe this season. 3 wins apiece here coming into tonight's race, round number 7. It's only those 2 drivers who've made it into victory lane. I think the big question is, will we see another driver make it to victory lane here tonight and pick up those 6-shooters?
Yes, and let me tell you why. I got a text message from a secret person. Okay, I'm not allowed to reveal who that person is, as I noticed that my microphone is peaking horribly. I do apologize, guys. I got a secret text message saying this certain driver who texted me is not going to be fast. All right, this person told me he's going to struggle a lot, but he also told me that Tyler Seville has a 66.6% chance of winning tonight's race.
Are we doing math?
Are we doing math?
Are we doing math?
I think we're doing math. We gotta look out for Tyler Seville. He's fast in practice right now. He's fast in practice. He's gonna be fast in our hearts, and he's gonna be fast in victory lane tonight.
Well, you hear Carlos Acosta picking Tyler Seville in the number 11 machine, but how about the driver currently sitting second place on the scoring pylon here in practice? Mitch Brown, the champion from 2 seasons ago here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Yes, folks, Mitch Brown is back in that number 36 machine, as you see the point standings coming into tonight, with Greg Evans leading the points over Scott Eckridge. Those 2 drivers each winning 3 wins apiece. And then you find Tyler Seville. That's Carlos Acosta's pick here tonight. He enters the night 3rd place in points. Then you got Corey Silva, who has been really, really consistent so far this year in the number 94 machine. But then look back behind him. 3 consecutive Will Worcer racing machines. Doug Mullins, Will Worcer, AJ Digby right there. Michael Krobach, Loud Pedal Motorsports, Mr. Unlucky himself right there in 8th. Just doesn't seem like Michael Krobach can get that strategy just right. It kind of slipped away from him again last night here in the American Sim Racing Series. And then, of course, Jimmy McKee, one of last year's final 4 drivers in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series playoffs, and Brian Yazik, the other Loud Pedal Motorsports machine, rounding out the top 10 as you look a little bit further back in the point standings. But I'm really excited here tonight, Carlos. You know, Texas Motor Speedway, mile and a half, recently reconfigured. Very difficult in turn number 1 and 2. Turn number 3 and 4, the old school turn number 3 and 4 at Texas Motor Speedway that this track originally was built with. But that reconfiguration of turns number 1 and 2 really has changed the way this racetrack drives on that end of the racetrack considerably.
Yes, it's changed Texas a lot. Texas used to be a lot different than what it is now. One of the things we got to do watch out for is that Texas, not counting how the new package model is going to change some things, but traditionally Texas, in iRacing, the new one, has been a single lane type of race, and we even saw it on the professionals when they did the NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitationals. Timmy Hill pushed William Byron out of the way on the last restart to get the win. That's because they could only drive on the inside line. We're gonna see if that's gonna be the same in this week, or if it's gonna change up because of the new package model. Why don't you tell us about the new package models these drivers are getting ready to qualify?
Well, yeah, of course, iRacing has continued to work on these cars since we saw those NASCAR's drivers out there last year during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. And iRacing recently changed the way a lot of these racetracks drives by tweaking the configuration of the grip on the racetracks, by messing with the where drivers can find grip on the racetrack. So hopefully we find a little bit more side-by-side action than what we have seen in the past here on the iRacing service. As you see the number 10 machine here curling there go through turn number 1 and 2, really wide open in turn number 1 and 2. That's how they were able to reconfigure the racetrack. You see the apron down there on the bottom side of the racetrack is so narrow. Well, that's because they actually had a much wider apron down there back in the day, and what they were able to do is kind of scoot that apron in towards the wall and just shallow out the banking in turn number 1 and 2, which made the racing surface a lot wider, but also made that banking angle, the bank angle, just a little bit shallower in turn number 1 and 2. So the car doesn't have as much grip. We usually see the drivers braking a little bit harder in turn number 1 and letting the car kind of roll through there. And turn number 3 and 4 tend to be just a little bit faster, which I'm sure a lot of the fans here at Texas Motor Speedway love to see those cars racing by nice and fast. If they were able to keep turn number 3 and 4 nice and quick, as you see those pole times starting to jump on the leaderboard here in the Midwest Simulations pole qualifying session. And you see Tyler Seville sitting atop the board right now. Carlos, he is your pick. 28.942, almost backing up his practice time, which was a 28.903, just 0.04 of a second slower in the qualifying session. But that could be due to the Texas sun that beats down over this racetrack. Of course, this racetrack usually quite slippery. Greg Evans, the number 2 machine, is out there on the racetrack right now. He didn't have a great qualifying run last week. In fact, it was kind of not what you typically see out of Greg Evans in the number 2 machine, at least in qualifying last week, and had his worst finish of the season as Eckrich got that win in round number 1 of the Wheelman Showdown. Of course, that this year brought to you by Sim Speed Shop. Great to have them on board, but Atlanta didn't go Greg Evans' way. Hopefully trying to rebound here tonight. Currently 18th place on the board after lap number 1. But while I was talking about Greg Evans, Jordan Harnish in the number 27 machine, Carlos, he jumped to the top of the Midwest Simulations pole board.
Tyler, come on, man. You gotta do better. All right, I was told this was a guaranteed pick. Okay, Tyler, you better not let me down.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, starting up near the front isn't the end of the world. Starting at the back isn't the end of the world either. There's a long race here tonight, 250 miles. It's going to be kind of a slugfest here at the Texas Motor Speedway. I want to give a huge shout out to the folks that we have in the chat here tonight. We got Daniel Noble asking who's racing tonight. Well, it's the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. As we see one car go around, I think that who was that, Carlos?
It might have been the number 10.
Number 90.
I believe that was a 10 that we were just watching. Yeah, it may have been Nick Curling.
It's the number 10 machine. Curling, but new fastest laps. Scott Eckrich. Oh my goodness, Eckrich has been on an absolute tear, trying to pick up win number 4 here tonight. And not only would it be win number 4, it would be his 3rd win in a row if he can get those 6 shooters here at No Limits, Texas.
Something that this new handling package for the Cup First has introduced, and I've noticed a couple drivers talking about it, is of course multi-lane racing. And while we're not sure if we're going to be seeing that here tonight, something that has been kind of made aware from a lot of these drivers is that whether you choose the inside lane or the outside lane, you can theoretically save tires and still be competitive in either lane, as long as you adapt it to your driving style. I've seen some drivers say that no longer is the outside line the only place that you could save tires, because it's feasibly possible to also save your tires on the inside, and it's kind of given the driver some control as to how hard they can push it and how they can drive their own line and also be able to maintain tire strategy.
Yeah, so there's a lot on the lines for the drivers here tonight, but as you can see, Midwest Simulations pole shootout has wrapped up here, and it is Scott Eckrich, the number 70 machine, who will be starting on that Midwest Simulations pole. Once again, lights out, blazing with a 28.929, picking up the pole by 2/1000ths of a second over Jordan Harnish. And folks, make sure you check out Midwest Simulations for all of your iRacing peripheral needs. Some really, really cool stuff coming out of them. So make sure you check them out. I know they got the iRacing iFlag stuff on there as well. The spotlights, not the iRacing iFlag, the spotlights. We see iRacing iFlag on the 2 machine of Greg Evans. Was tripping me up there, but the spotlights is what the product that they have. And I gotta say, I know that the Loud Pedal Motorsports team swear by those spotlights and the ability they give you to see where the other cars are around you on the racetrack, because the iRacing spotter is not the best spotter in the world. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I only trust that iRacing spotter probably 7 out of 10 times, because it just isn't as reliable as those spotlights that Midwest Simulations provide. As we see these drivers now in the warm-up session, they have 5 minutes to get back out there onto the racetrack, kind of feel things out after that qualifying session. And Carlos, what I'm expecting to see in this warm-up session is a lot of drivers practicing to get to pit road, because last week, caution-free at the Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, Sam Maxwell has a much lighter wallet today for sure. Of course, these drivers, while they won't be getting as much money, or as many drivers will be getting money if they do have another caution-free race tonight, that's still something they're going to aim for, because, you know, the money isn't the only motivating factor. There is still the fact that if these drivers keep a certain caution lap percentages within a, I believe, 4 race week span, then there's a chance that some of these drivers can get some of their strikes cleared. And Peter, I don't know if you want to go ahead and quickly explain to some of the fans here what an ASRS strike is.
Yeah, so the American Sim Racing Series elects to use a strike system for drivers that have driving infractions during a race weekend. So a driving infraction can be anything from being unable to control your car to causing an accident to so on and so forth. There's multiple different ways to pick up a strike or receive a penalty. However, if the field as a whole has a tendency to keep caution flags down, then the administrators have a tendency to, you know, just show a blind eye. If you have one driver who causes one accident in a 175 lap race, no big deal, right? You just don't want to have 20 drivers causing 20 different cautions in a 175 lap race, because then you have no green flag racing. So that's kind of how the administrators approach it. And I got to say, it has worked brilliantly well, especially this season with so many laps run under green flag, Carlos. Those the strikes that the drivers got at Phoenix a couple weeks back, there was quite a few cautions at Phoenix a couple weeks back, but with a clean race at Atlanta, they're keeping the amount of cautions down this season. And that's what we like to see, not only up here in the broadcast booth, but all the people watching at home. They want to see racing. They don't want to see cars out there pacing around the racetrack at 45 miles an hour. They want to see them at speed. They want to see the good, tight, close racing that you get here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. And speaking of Hacksaw PCs, that number 2 machine, Greg Evans, has a little bit of a new look this week, sporting Hacksaw on that race car. And gotta give a big shout out to Hacksaw PC. I myself am running a Hacksaw PC. That's right. Make sure you go check out Hacksaw PCs on Facebook. Nick over there, fantastic customer service. Stellar customer service from Hacksaw PCs. Was able to get me one of those AMD 5900X processors that very, very difficult to get a hold of. The guy is just absolutely fantastic to work with.
Hold on.
Gets you a
You're forgetting one important thing. What was the MSRP? Oh, sorry. What was the price?
I got the price of my processor. I got it at the stock price.
Oh, you got it at MSRP. Nice. All right. So, I'm sorry to cut you off, but to quickly answer a question on chat, Daniel Noble's asking, do these drivers get penalty points? They can get points, but they can't get penalty points with enough infractions of a specific type of penalty. But more often than not, most of the strikes that the drivers get is a drive-through to start the next race, and if it happens again, then they're going to be suspended for one race. So I would say it's probably worse than penalty points, just because of the fact that you don't get to participate in the next race.
Yeah, so it kind of takes the FIA type penalty point system that the FIA runs and kind of takes it to the extreme. These drivers have to be on their best behavior because once you've got one strike on your name, you basically have to be on your best behavior for the next 4 weeks. But hopefully we see drivers on their best behavior here tonight because cars are already out there starting to line up here on the pit lane here on the front stretch with a little bit of a different grading order than what we see at several of the iRacing racetracks here at Texas Motor Speedway. So pretty cool to see that as the track falls silent, but not all too long. Carlos, I think it's about time for us to go through tonight's starting lineup, starting with the number 70 machine, Scott Eckrich on the pole again. In fact, if you guys are keeping count, Scott Eckrich, not only does he have 3 wins to his name this season, this is his 3rd time picking up that Midwest Simulations Pole Award. So really, really impressive for that AMSOIL number 70 machine. Right next to him on row number 1, that would be Jordan Harnish in the number 27 machine, trying to continue his run of decent finishes. I would say decent finishes. He's been fast pretty much every week, just hasn't been able to get all the finishes he has deserved. Tyler Seville, Johnny Avila on row number 2. Woody Mahan, Roy Haight will make up row number 3. Steve Yenish, Greg Evans on row number 4. Jeff Yenish, the other Yenish brothers, they'll be starting back-to-back with one another tonight on row number 5. Jonathan Cadell rounding out your top 10. That's Steel Horse Live himself. Make sure you go check him out on Twitch there, Carlos.
Yeah, unfortunately, can you keep on going, Peter? I do not have access to the original qualifying information.
Sure, I will continue going along. In 11th spot here tonight, Michael Krobach. Will Warser will be rolling off from P12. Doug Mullins, Corey Silva, row number 7. Braxton DeWeese and Brian Yazik on row number 8. Thomas George, Jimmy McKee, 17th and 18th. Nick Gardner and Cody Spiker, 19th and 20th. Jackson Van Valkenburg, AJ Digby, 21st and 22nd. Nick Curling, Grant Brown, 23rd, 24th. Danny Gutierrez and Pete Baskins on row number 13. Tim Nutt, Clarence Bonner, 27th, 28th. John Eckhart and Adam Jursky, 29th and 30th. Michael Larch, Evan Black on row number 16. Jamie Moore, Kevin Stone, 33rd, 34th. Michael Whiting, Jason Stewart, 35th, 36th. Gary Reynolds Jr., Kevin Klein, who I believe is making his first race of the season here tonight, 37th, 38th. Mark Myers and I believe Mitch Brown in the number 36 machine will be starting shotgun on the field. Keep an eye out for the 2019 American Sim Racing Series champion in that number 36 machine. But the pace car has headed down pit road. Race is in the hands of the number 70 of Scott Eckrich, and there's a green flag, a little bit of a stack up right up at the front of the field, but it looks like we get everything rolling here at Texas Motor Speedway. You know, a couple weeks back at Las Vegas, we saw some issues there on the start of the race, but here we don't see that here at Texas Motor Speedway. Oh man, I think that was Doug Mullins, the number 18 machine, who might have had a little bit of a bobble in turn number 1 and 2. We're 3 wide down the backstretch and back 3 by 3 down the backstretch. As Mullins on the inside, the number 5 machine of Braxton DeWeese split him up the middle, but a very eventful start here at Texas Motor Speedway, Carlos. You don't often see 3 wide on 3 wide TV on lap number 1.
What are you talking about? We're always seeing 3 wide and 3 wide TV, especially on lap number 1, because these drivers all know that in order to win the race, you must treat lap 1 as a last lap. But no, jokes aside, these guys are some of the best iRacers I've personally ever had the privilege of broadcasting, and they're showing it today. We had drivers going 3, almost 4 wide, some drivers slowing back to get out of the chaos, other drivers trying to make as many spots as they could, and we had no cautions. Fantastic job by all these guys to make sure they all stay out of trouble, even though a couple drivers may have gone loose. There's number 2 of Greg Evans. You noted earlier his brand new paint scheme. I couldn't pull it up because he wasn't on track, but there he is now, currently running in 7th.
I'm watching turn number 2, Carlos. I'm seeing a couple of drivers struggle. Doug Mullins, it happened to him a couple of laps ago, but also last time by Nick Gardner in the number 16 machine got a little bit loose. Coming out of turn number 2, had to check up, got actually down on the apron. The flat portion of the circuit down there really unloaded that number 16 machine. And he lost a little bit of ground to the cars in front of him, trying to reel that back up. Jimmy McKee, the next car in front, up there in the 20th position. But meanwhile, pretty much single file up towards the front. Greg Evans having a look to the inside of Steve Yenish. Woody Mahan having a look to the inside of Johnny Avila.
Yeah, these guys are they're starting to kind of figure out what they want to do. They're not all quite sure yet, But, you know, single file for these first couple laps, and eventually they may actually continue to stay single file. However, I do expect, should we actually get a restart, and it's very, very hard for me to say, should we get a restart, but should these guys get a restart, I expect to see these guys battle side by side for these first couple of laps. But of course, you know, to start the race, you're gonna take it easy. It's a little chaotic at first, but you know, you just want to make sure you got no problem. Now, if you're noticing on the tickers, we have our horizontal and our vertical ticker up and running. The vertical ticker is showing the classic gap, and the horizontal ticker is showing the Formula One or European style interval ticker for the first couple laps, and then we're gonna switch it over to last laps so you guys can see, you know, how much the tires are wearing and what you can compare the times to the others. So for these first couple laps, expect it like that. You're also gonna be seeing that the 41st, Richard Fletcher, is currently out for, Richard Fletcher is the reserve driver who was there just in case anybody had any issues, and if that was the case, then he can join in. So he did not officially qualify for this race, that's why he's listed as out.
Yeah, I believe Kevin Klein in the number 4 machine was also one of those alternate drivers. So someone, not sure who, must have dropped out here tonight. So Klein able to get his way into the field. In fact, I'm looking up and down the scoring pylon to see if the number 24 machine of Alan Young is here tonight. Don't believe Alan Young is. I don't remember calling his name in the pre-race. So I believe Alan Young might be that one driver who's was locked into the show here tonight, but did not present his car to the grid, so that is allowing Kevin Klein to race in the number 4 University of Utah Ford. And of course, Kevin and I go way back to the NASCAR Racing 2003 days, back to when we were basically teenagers racing around in sim racing machines. So cool to have Kevin out there. I believe it is his first start of the season. He has tried to qualify a couple times, and great to see him out there running his first lap as well. My goodness, Braxton Deweese and Will Warsaw almost had a little bit of a coming together here on the front stretch, almost a pass in the grass-like move there by Braxton Deweese, but they able to get things sorted out. You look out back, I believe, of that number 5 machine, head down the back stretch. There's Will Warsaw in that number 29 mobile. Just keeping my eyes on kind of, you know, comers and goers here tonight.
Okay, hold on. Speaking of comers. Yeah, speaking of comers, Peter, what is the number 1 driver we always want to look out for weird strategies?
That'd be the number 1 machine.
That'd be the number 1 machine is the correct answer, because Jason Stewart not only is the one with the weirdest picture and the weirdest strategies, but he's also the biggest mover of the race so far. 10 laps into this race, currently up 8 positions in 28th place. Now, other couple drivers to note is the number 69 of Adam Jersky. And yes, I know, I see the questions. I know it's in your head. What is the cheesecake of the race this week? Well, unfortunately, Greg couldn't be here, and because he's not here, he'd never actually brought any cheesecake. So, unfortunately, you're missing cheesecake, we're missing cheesecake, but Adam Jersky, he's running on that cheesecake right now because he is currently up 7 spots.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there are some places in Dallas that make just straight up cheesecake. That is absolutely to die for, folks. If you're ever in Dallas, you have to look up on Google. I can't remember the name of the place. I wish I remember, but there's one place in Dallas that makes just the best cheesecake. And everyone rants and raves about it. So, nonetheless, up front right now, Scott Eckrich doing what he did at Atlanta, Carlos. He almost led every lap of that race 1 week ago. 1.5 miles. Yeah, almost. Not every lap, but Scott Eckrich doing what he did last week, getting out already to a 1.5 seconds, now down to 1.3 seconds. He lost about a tenth of a second that last lap, but Taylorsville trying to close them in. Seville has gotten up into that second position, getting around Jordan Harnish, who qualified up there in second. Greg Evans has picked up 4 spots. He's now up into 4th. The other driver to have won 3 times this season. And then Steve Yenish, one of the Yenishes, in fact, both of the Yenishes, both Steve and Jeff up there inside the top 10. As looks like, as I say that,
yeah, they're side by side. Look at that.
Yeah, saying Steve was doing good. He was up there in the 5th spot, but he's going to lose a couple positions here, drop back to 8, as he must have had a little bit of a moment there coming out of turn number 4 in the number 23 Tampa SUV Rentals.com Toyota. Going to get passed by his brother there in the other Tampa SUV Rentals.com Toyota. So we'll keep our eyes on them. Meanwhile, Avila up in front battling with Troy Haight. What a good start it has been for the number 28 machine P&N Water Filters Chevrolet of Troy Haight up here knocking on the door of a top 5. That's currently held by Johnny Avila in that kind of yellow and gold machine. And I'll tell you what, Carlos, Avila was fast last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Started on the pole, but things didn't quite pan out. Didn't end up with the win, but still ended up with a top 5. So Avila trying to get those back-to-back top 5s here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series.
It's interesting to see what these drivers can do when put in the correct situation. Now, one thing to note, people watching in, potential sponsors watching in the chat, these drivers, because of the rules that the league sets, the standard that they set to become one of the best leagues in iRacing, no, not even just iRacing, the best leagues all around, they are requiring every single driver in the Premier Cup Series to have permission to run a sponsor. Essentially, all these sponsors you're seeing are either actual real-life sponsors that are sponsoring the drivers, or people that have agreed to put their name on the car for whatever type of exchanges. However, some of these drivers you're seeing without sponsors, especially that number 5 that's running near that front. Not the number 5. I apologize. Well, the number 5 too, but the number 9. Sorry, the 63, there we go. I'm confusing some of these drivers. Number 63 of Johnny Villa doesn't have a sponsor. He's in 5th place. That's what I was thinking about. You know, here's a good chance to sponsor this driver, Canadian driver Johnny Villa, and you may be getting your money's worth very, very quickly.
And I'll tell you what, though, I almost saw contact between Braxton DeWeese and now almost contact between Jonathan Cadell and Will Worcester. Worcester, he's going to hit the 8. No! Contact. And the 29 machine gets what a save out of the number 29 machine. Worcester there really having issues. He got past just the lap before with by Braxton DeWeese. There was almost contact between those two, and then that time Worcester clipped the apron, and when he clipped that apron, he had to roll out of it. But Jonathan Cadell was tucked up underneath his rear spoiler, nowhere for Cadell to go, but unfortunately, just a little bit of a coming together. Luckily, what a great save by the number 29 machine of Worcester. He's going to slide back to 13th. Cadell's going to hold on to 7th. Watch this. There's that contact with the apron, and you can see he just got a little bit loose there, and you see them go 3 wide. Great job there by the field to hold everything together, and now Cadell will try and close in on the back of Braxton DeWeese, what will be a battle for the 10th spot. And Cadell has been really good here in his first few return starts to the American Sim Racing Series. Carlos had a great run last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway, almost finished on the podium, and then he finished on the podium the weekend before that at Phoenix.
Yeah,
so,
he did.
We got to keep our eyes on Jonathan Cadell.
We got to keep our eyes on Jonathan Cadell. Jonathan Cadell, popular Twitch streamer, I believe. And I'm going to take a guess here. It's only lap 21. He may be into his first Natty Light on the Natty Light counter. So Steel Horse Live, I believe, is his Twitch. That's where he is broadcasting his in-car view. And where you probably would have seen his reaction to when he tapped that bumper of the number 29 of Will Wursler. Speaking of Will Wursler, though, I was told by Will Wursler himself that he was forced by the actual owner of Will Wursler Racing, Nikki, that he had to change things up under her request. And he did. Peter, take a look at his new profile picture.
Well, there you go. That's a good look at Will Worcester there, wearing his shades. In fact, I think so many people wear their shades on these pictures. We got Tyler Seville. We know he always wears his shades. There you go. He got a new picture. And then we saw the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart. And Jason, I don't know if you have some type of a band or something, but that is an album. That is an album cover right there, if I've ever seen one.
Looks like an album cover from like a band in the early 2000s.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's just really cool to see these drivers and their faces in the software, and it's really cool to get that little bit of extra integration here onto the 3-wide TV broadcast that we didn't have last year here on the channel. So always trying to expand and improve on the broadcast that we have here in the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, as you're watching tonight's Dirty Bird Sim Racing Texas 250. And speaking of one of those Dirty Bird machines, well, and look a little bit further back in the pack is the number 36 machine. Mitch Brown having some connection issues.
Mitch!
And there you see, yeah,
Mitch,
well, you know, you
come
got all
on.
those sponsors. Carlos, well, that's the problem when you have so many sponsors. You can't keep them small. But Mitch Brown right there from Part Unknown, wherever that is.
It's supposed to be Parts Unknown. You forgot the S.
Well, I don't know. That's his hometown. Part Unknown. I don't know. We're just going to roll with it here on 3Y TV, folks. But
he's
Mitch
having
Brown
connection
right
issues.
there in number 30. Yeah, he's having some little blinking issues, but that's a tough break for him.
Your dog did not like that one.
Yeah, maybe my dog isn't a Mitch Brown fan.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing, though. We noticed the fact that Mitch Brown was losing some network quality there. I'm vamping in case Peter needs to take care of a little situation there. But that being said, these drivers are being monitored. There is active race control off track monitoring what these guys are doing. And one of the things that they monitor is connection packet information, the quality of their connection. And if it drops to an unacceptable level, not a level that iRacing deems unacceptable, but an unacceptable level set by ASRS standards, they will be asked to go to the back. And if it does not get fixed, they'll be asked to park the vehicle. And that's a really bad thing that's going to happen. It's fair, definitely is fair. But when that happens, before they can race again, they have to prove, whether in the lower series or by participating in official races or whatever it may be, whatever the ASRS deems is going to be acceptable for them to return, they have to prove that the connection is back up running. And one of the, pardon me, I forgot to mention, official practices would also count as if it can keep the quality up. So if he is unable to get his connection back up and running, Mitch Brown is looking at maybe missing a couple more races if that problem continues.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully it does improve as the night goes on, but not the first time we've ever seen that number 36 machine with some connection issues. We're riding on board here with Braxton DeWeese, the number 17 machine. I know we got some DeWeese fans in the chat here tonight on 3Y TV. We appreciate you guys jumping on board with us and enjoying the ride here as DeWeese running inside the top 10 there in the 10th position. You see everyone working their way through turn number 3 and 4. Scott Eckrich now holding on to about a 2-second lead, runs about another 1.3 seconds back to our new third place driver. That is Greg Evans in the number 2 machine. You can see that gap that the number 70 has built up right there on the 3Y TV camera. But fourth spot currently held by Jordan Harnish there, about 4.5 seconds off the race lead, and Johnny Avila now 5 seconds behind the race, Carlos.
We saw Johnny Avila try to defend his 5th place position a couple laps ago. Couldn't remember if that was between the 28 or another driver, because the 28 is currently in 6th. And it seems like since that happened, Avila's been able to pull away and maintain a decent gap of well over a second over 6th place. So he's looking to, maintain a nice, smooth, consistent run right now. We were talking about Steve and Janich. We saw Steve was losing a couple spots. He was able to get by his brother, and now he's, they're continuing to battle side by side, but Steve is looking to get back some of those spots that he lost early in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. You see them blast out of turn number 4 there. Some really good racing, clean racing here so far in the first 32 laps. I think one question in the chat is, what do we think about the fuel window here tonight? Well, here tonight, I don't expect the drivers to make it all the way to the end of their fuel window, but we know, Carlos, based off of last week, another 1.5-mile racetrack at Atlanta Motor Speedway, 130 lap race, also 1.5 miles, so the same track length as what we have here tonight. Those drivers were able to make it 65 laps. We had some drivers that just one stop at Atlanta Motor Speedway. A good portion of the field two stops. Your race winner, Scott Eckrich, he did 2 stops. But then you had Thomas George, Brian Yasek. Both of those drivers only made 1 pit stop. They made 2 stints of 65 laps each. As we ride on board Jackson and Bulkenberg trying to make that pass in the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart. This is battle for the 25th spot right now. So we don't expect drivers to really push that number here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway, because it doesn't give them any benefit with this race being an extra 50 miles versus than what we saw last week at Atlanta. But 65 laps was right on the cusp of making it last week. Here tonight, I expect them to start pitting around lap number 60. In fact, we might even have some drivers come in a little bit earlier than that, just to think about split the race up into thirds, with 2 presumed pit stops here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway.
All right, Peter, in your professional experience, because I would consider you a professional sim racer, don't argue with me. I know you know it's true. In your professional experience, have you ever seen short stopping to add an additional stop ever work out?
Yes, I have.
Have you done it?
I have done it. I have
Really?
indeed. Yes, I have won a race. In fact, it was in the 3-wide racing league at
Rest in peace.
Milwaukee. At Milwaukee Mile, where I pitted 1 extra time than everyone else in the field, and I won the race by about 20 seconds of doing so. But here's the reason why it worked at Milwaukee, and here's the reason why it doesn't work at most racetracks. Milwaukee has a tiny pit lane. You're on pit lane for just about 15 extra seconds. Most racetracks, like here at Texas Motor Speedway, pit road speed's gonna be 55. Okay, Milwaukee Mile, your top speed is maybe 145, and you're going down pit road at like 60 miles an hour there. Pit road is not only fast at Milwaukee Mile, but it's also a really short pit lane. But at tracks like this, you're going 185, 190 miles an hour on Texas Motor Speedway, 55 miles an hour on pit road. Pit road here is really long. Your pit road delta time here on most 1.5-mile racetracks is just too long to make that work. You can make it work on the smaller tracks, but here on the big tracks, it just isn't going to work unless your tire fall off is absolutely significant. With some of the tweaks iRacing has done over the last couple of builds, let's say the last year to 2, iRacing has made the tires have a little bit more longevity. And I say that, they kind of plateau now. And we heard a lot of drivers talk about that plateau last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We heard from Brian Yazzie. After about 35 laps, the tires tended to plateau versus, pretty much through the end of the run. So from about lap number 30, lap number 35, somewhere in that window, all the way to lap number 65, the tires really didn't have a lot of fall off. When I had done that back at Milwaukee, there was fall off through the entire run. So things change. The tires change here in iRacing. They change the way the tires work as we go back and catch this 3-wide TV replay here. This is the number 16 machine, I do believe, running. Making contact with the outside wall. That's not good. And through the infield grass as well. That's Nick Gardner going to have some right front damage. We saw a lot of cars with right front damage last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Going to lose another spot there to Mitch Brown. But he's going to have to nurse that right front for the remainder of the race, Carlos.
Yeah, unlike some other leagues that we made. Actually, no, unlike other leagues in general, this league does not have fast repairs. So you get damage, you're stuck with that damage, as we're seeing Clarence Bonner go down pit road. Brian Yazzie going down pit road too. Peter, is it time for pit road to be open?
It seems a little bit early. My dog in the background, he doesn't think pit road should be
not
open
liking that
this
strategy, no. Clarence Bonner is, he was in pit road for 16 seconds. Unless he's repairing damage, not sure what a 16-second stop usually means. If you get a penalty, you're being held there for a lot longer. So it's possible maybe something happened with Clarence Bonner, or he could just be taking damage, as we see Woody Mahan down in pit road.
Yeah, so a lot of drivers here coming down pit road at this point of the race. They're thinking about that, Carlos. They're thinking about that extra pit stop. Because right now they're cutting the race into quarters. So they're thinking about making the 3-stop strategy work versus the 2-stop strategy. So, let's again think about it here.
Into
right
quarters?
Now, your race. Yeah, we're
With
only
3?
at the quarter race distance, Carlos. Yeah, you do 3 stops.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
race
sorry.
them to 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, I'm not too good with math.
Yeah, what's math, right? But let's look at the times up at the top of the screen.
All right, we're doing math.
Your
now.
race leader, Scott Eckrich. Yeah, I told you. Let's not do math at the beginning, but at some point we'll start to do math. Scott Eckrich, that last time by, ran a 30.848 second lap time. That's 1.7 seconds slower folks, than his best lap of the race, which sits at a 29.117, which is actually the fastest lap of the entire race so far, turned by anyone, just 0.03 of a second faster than Tyler Seville in the number 11, who sits in second. But 1.7 seconds. I'm just kind of looking at the lap times of other drivers. Let's look at Greg Evans. Greg Evans on lap number 23 of the race. Okay, lap number 23, so that's a good, 20-something laps ago. Again, we're not doing all the math. You guys can figure out some of it at home. Greg Evans ran a 30.667 that lap. So, Greg Evans is now running a 30.8. Greg Evans hasn't fallen off since lap number 23 or so. He's still running about the same lap times. So in my book, Carlos, that plateau is strong enough that I don't think that this strategy is going to work for the drivers electing to do the three-stop strategy, just because of how strong the tires plateau.
Look at that from behind.
You're gonna, well, yeah, this is what I was gonna say. You're gonna be lights out for the first couple of laps. But here's the thing, folks. Okay, here's the thing about the strategy. You're gonna be lights out for those first few laps. Okay, in those first few laps, you have to make up all the time that you would lose by pitting one extra time. Because after that point, the tires plateau. The other drivers who are going to be pitting twice, well, they're going to be pitting twice. That means they have 2 times on those fresh tires to turn those fast laps. Then you're going to have those drivers who are going to have, the 3 times to use to run those fast laps. But you also have the 3 times on pit road to slow your car down. So I could be completely wrong, but if we get cautions, of course, that changes everything. That can create a completely different ballgame. I don't see it playing out for some of these drivers. Maybe they're struggling on tires. Maybe they're a little bit further back in the pack. They're trying to do something to maybe get track position with a caution. That can happen too. I'm not saying the strategy's necessarily bad, but I think they're going to have cautions fall their way. We're going to keep our eyes on it here tonight, folks, and see how it all plays out. But Steve Yanish, Braxton Luis, Woody Mahan, Brian Yazek, Jordan Harnish, Troy Haight, Danny Gutierrez, Grant Brown, Jamie Moore, Evan Black, Michael Whiting, Kevin Klein, Clarence Bonner, Tim Knott, all those drivers, including Gary Reynolds Jr., have already come down pit road here in this race as we work lap number 49 of 167. I think we will see our leaders on pit road around lap number 59 here tonight. Maybe 55 to 59. We'll see somewhere in that range.
All right, so yeah, a couple of laps.
They can't make it. Yeah, so I think they'll stretch it out here for another eight or so laps. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the chat as well here. But talking numbers here tonight, Carlos, in my home state. I like that.
Yeah, we got I didn't know that must have been our longest math section. I actually had to stop the graphic just because it was too long. But yeah, it's always a pleasure whenever we talk math, that's for sure.
Yeah, even when the graphic just flashes up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Yeah, just
flash. That's what happens whenever we talk about math.
But hey, we got a pass right here. Greg Evans, Tyler Seville. This is a battle for second out there on the racetrack. Speaking of numbers, and the number 2 machine able to use the number 11 as a pick. And look at Johnny Avila right there, the number 63. He also used that lap traffic right there as a bit of a pick because he was able to get around the number 11 of Seville. Carlos, your pick is slipping here tonight.
I don't want to hear from you.
Pete Baskins in the number 39 machine. He was the car there being passed by those leaders. You see the number 99 machine. That's Clarence Bonner with a Jeff Burton throwback here tonight in the Patriot Media and Marketing Services.
Oh, whoa. Somebody just smacked the wall?
I don't know, but the number 11 decided to smack pit road in his machine, so that's interesting to see him come down. A little bit of a new look on the Arch Telecom number 11. We saw that last week. Really cool looking ride. We didn't get to feature it last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway, I don't believe, but
well, yeah, because we weren't broadcasting last week.
I really like that. We weren't? We were there at Atlanta Motor Speedway last week, Carlos. The week off was 2 weeks ago.
The week off was
Actually, more than. The week off was March 10th.
Hey, you're
That
right.
was like 3
Hey,
weeks ago.
you're right. I'm getting my
totally
leagues
there at
confused.
the
Maybe I'm
Landmarks Weekly.
overworked. But,
Maybe, you know,
yeah,
we
maybe.
got all these podcasts every week.
I do apologize. I don't know what part of me thought we had a week off. And I was like, oh man, it's been... Oh my God, in the broadcast notes, not the broadcast notes, the description and the post, I'm like, hey, after a week off, these guys are back. What? I bet you all must be so confused. I'm stupid.
Folks, F in the chat for Carlos, please.
F in the chat for me, please. Corey Silva, down Pit Road.
Corey Silva on pit road and the number 94 machine. And he's been having, you know, such a good run so far this season here in the Cup Series. And he's going to come down to his pit crew. Still watching our race leader, who is still Scott Eckrich and Greg Evans. Those two drivers.
Down Pit Road.
Yeah, each one have won 6 races. Yeah, Johnny Avila on pit road right now. So this is right around that period, Carlos, where I said we'd start to see our leaders start to come down pit road between lap number 55 and number 59. If you're Greg Evans, if you're the number 70 of Scott Eckrich, you can actually keep it out there on the racetrack just a little while longer. And the folks in the chat probably wondering, why would you want to stay out on the racetrack longer? You have the old tires. Well, just in case a caution flag comes out. Especially if you're the 70 of Eckrich, you have such a big lead right now that you can lose a little bit of time. If you decide to stay out a couple laps longer, you can just run them back down and make those passes, especially if you're on older tires. But as I say that, Scott Eckrich is on the button saying, I'm coming down pit road this time. So keep our eyes on the number 70. He should be peeling off to come down to pit road. It is 45 miles an hour here at Texas Motor Speedway. Carlos, that is excruciatingly slow. 45
really
miles an
is.
hour here down the front stretch.
It really is incredibly slow. And it's even slower if you have to do a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have to do a drive-through penalty. I'm just looking up and down the scoring pylon to see if we have had any drivers with any type of penalties so far. And I think the only driver I'm seeing, Carlos, who's been nabbed on pit road, Pete Baskins, the number 39 machine, who had a very lengthy pit stop, 40 plus seconds longer than everyone else. As you see, man, Jonathan Cadell in the number 96 machine. Hopefully he doesn't get nabbed for speeding coming down pit road, but that was a pit and a half on that number 96 machine. The Steel Horse Live number 96 has Extreme Sim Racing on the hood of that number 96 machine. And folks, if you're in the market for some type of sim rig, go check out Jonathan Cadell's Steel Horse Live Twitch page, because he actually has a link there where you can kind of get hooked up with a little bit of a discount. So giving him a little bit of a plug here on the channel, but also hopefully helping you out in the chat as well if you're in the market for that sort of thing. In fact, I'm really curious to know how many of these drivers, and maybe some of these drivers will be watching this race on demand, and hopefully you are, and hopefully if you hear this as we continue to cycle through AJ Digby, your new race leader, if you're one of these drivers out here and you have hookups, Carlos mentioned that a lot of these drivers have real sponsors like Jonathan Cadell and Extreme Sim Racing, and you have some type of promo code, let us know. You know, shoot a message out to us here in 3Y TV. I know American Regardless typically runs a promotional code as well. But these would be really cool things to kind of dole out in the chat. You want to get your sponsor some exposure. You want to get your sponsor, out there. You want to get your sponsor people to buy their products, And if you can get us some of those promotional codes that we might be able to give out, maybe you can drum up some cool exposure for your particular sponsor. But here tonight, things still cycling through. Michael Larch in the number 3 machine is your race leader. He has yet to come down pit road. Mark Myers in the 04 machine has yet to come down pit road. And then, Carlos, we got a couple of drivers like Woody Mahan, Jordan Harnish, Steve Yenish, as Myers, I think he's pulling off pit road right now. But Mahan, Harnish, and Yenish, those 3 drivers appear to be on the 3-stop strategy. They are the race leader right now because of the fact that they pitted so early, but they've already been passed by Scott Eckrich. So
Yeah,
their
speaking of
strategy,
Scott Eckridge, sorry, Peter, but speaking of Scott Eckridge, the last 2 laps in a row, he's dropped the fastest lap times on the race in the middle of traffic. Can you? Okay, is it too late for me to change my pick from Tyler to Scott? It may be, but it's just wow. I think Scott has this race for sure. He is fast, and he is going to continue putting in those fast lap times, especially every single time he drops down pit road. In the chat, we got a lot of topics going around saying because of that flub, I got to put a picture of sushi on my broadcast. No, I'm not going to put a picture of sushi on my broadcast. That being said, we also have Seth Olsen saying it's a Steiner math. It does that to you. Yeah, Seth, that's what happened. I forgot to add Kurt Angle into the mix, and that's why I thought we had a week off yesterday, even though we didn't.
you know, yeah, we're just getting things sorted here. We do have a question in the chat as Michael Larch is going to head down pit road about Scott Eckridge and his lap times in the number 70 machine, and asking what was his last lap there before he came down pit road. Well, I have an answer for you. His last lap before he eventually came down pit road was a 30.8. Now, remember, folks, right there around lap number 40 or so, I said the number 70 of Scott Eckridge is running about a 30.8. He did not lose any time, Carlos, in the final 20 laps. He didn't lose any pace. Those tires completely plateaued at that point. And like I said, that tells me in 22 laps, in order to make that other pit strategy work, in 22 laps, you have to make up all the time that you would need to gain on a extra set of tires. And you're just not going to do that. You're only going to gain maybe 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds. But your pit road time, so everyone knows at home and in the chat, the pit lane delta time is about 39. You're not even going to gain 20 seconds. You're probably only going to gain about 10 to 15. But the pit road delta time here is 39 seconds. So I'll let you guys come to your own conclusion on that one. Now, like I said, if caution flags fly at certain times, we could have things play out very differently, but only time will tell. Could be our second consecutive caution-free race here. We'll just have to wait and see here at Motor Speedway.
Yeah, you don't want to speak,
I don't want to speak too soon. As we got 3 wide here. Oh, man.
Yeah, just for a
3
little
wide
bit.
there with the 88 on the inside.
Yeah, just for a little bit there. We still got drivers cycling around based on where, when they went down pit road and, you know, how many laps it's been. So these guys are still, it's a little crazy, but a couple more laps, it's going to settle down a lot. You know who's happy? You know who's happy that you may have possibly jinxed the fact that there may be a caution-free race, and that's going to be Sam Close, because you know he doesn't want to spend any more money. Are you kidding me? That's
You mean Maxwell?
Who did I say?
You said Sam Close.
Did I say Sam Close?
Yeah, you did Sam Close. Yes,
you know what's funny? I was thinking the same thing earlier. It's like, oh wait, no. Yeah, I wonder how I've never messed those two people up. But yeah, I meant Sam Maxwell. I do apologize. Hey, who put that picture of sushi up in my broadcast?
Folks, things are just going wild here tonight at No Limits, Texas. That's it. No limits here tonight on 3 Wide TV. Simple as that. Hopefully you're enjoying the broadcast here. 100 miles in to tonight's Dirty Bird Sim Racing 250. Big shout out to them for jumping on board. Let's follow up with one of those Dirty Bird drivers, the number 36 machine, who's out there here tonight. That's right, Mitch Brown, a former series champion, Mod Chaser Meteor on the hood of that Toyota Camry. Started at the tail end of the field. He's worked his way up to the 17th position right now, running right in front of the number 8 of Jimmy McKee. Well, was running right in front of Jimmy McKee, but McKee's going to drop to his inside and just made that pass here just a moment ago. So now he slides back to 18th. Right in front of, I believe that is the number 29 machine of Will Worsler. And we just got to keep an eye here, Carlos, on this particular moment in time. Whoa, contact. The 13 of Gary Reynolds Jr. just got a little bit of a hip check from the number 8 machine of Jimmy McKee. And they're able to keep things going nice and clean. It was a really square hit between those two cars, but McKee was putting the number 13 a lap behind him, and the number 13 shot up the racetrack. Looks like that number 13 has a decent amount of damage on that car. We'll go back and see if we can pick up that replay. Here we go. This was coming to the incident going through turn number 3 and 4. Luckily, iRacing decided to be on their side in terms of the netcode situation. But yeah, I don't know if there was any contact, but it definitely looked like
netcode.
Yeah, it definitely looked like there was a little bit of netcode, but with the way the iHeartRadio, number 13 machine, iHeartRadio?
Sorry, I thought you were trying to say something else. No, you're 100% correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if it's iHeartRadio or iHeartMedia. Same company.
Well, I think they're out of the same company, so either way.
Oh, 3 wide in the front stretch. Oh, that almost happened. That's not a place where you want 3 wide to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can go 3 wide on 3 wide TV on the back stretch, but on the front stretch, it's not advised. And I think cooler heads prevail right there here on the front stretch as Reynolds continuing to slide back through the field, just keeping my eye on when he elected to come down pit road. I think he was one of the earlier takers on pit road with the damage that we see on that number 13 machine, and indeed he pitted 30 laps ago. So with him pitting 30 laps ago, and with the fact that we have some drivers here on a slightly different strategy, I'm just trying to think here, Carlos. Those drivers who pitted on around lap number 40, they would have to go, I take that back. They pitted on lap number 40 with 120 or so laps to go. They might have just kind of reversed the schedule for some of the drivers, because we did see drivers make it 65 laps. And I apologize, wasn't able to see where drivers like AJ Digby finally stretched it out to. But I think they made it 60 to 62 laps. So maybe they're just kind of reversing the strategy, if you will. So instead of pitting, instead of breaking it up into thirds, they're making one short run, and now they're going to have to make 2 really long runs to the end of the race. Maybe that's the strategy they're going to play. So I don't think the 3-stop strategy is going to work out. We think some drivers might try it, but I don't think it's going to work out. But I think if they now kind of have to run 2 very long stints, they might be able to make it on just 2 stops, and those drivers a little bit earlier. So we'll keep our eyes on that as the race goes on, as we watch the number 04 machine work his way around the racetrack. That's Mark Myers, currently sitting in the 38th position. We do have one car peeling off the racetrack right there, Carlos. I think that was Clarence Bonner in the number 99. There's a lot of right side damage to that number 99 Patriot machine. I'm wondering if there has been some contact with the outside wall recently. There has been. About a lap and a half ago, coming out of turn number 4, Bonner got wicked loose. We'll see if we can dial this one 3 wide TV replay. Yeah, right there. Let's see if we can maybe go back just a little. There we go. And get another look at the number 99 all by himself in that Jeff Burton inspired throwback. Got wicked loose, turns it up into the wall.
Too much beans.
And that is some hefty contact. Yeah, too much beans, that's for sure. And Clarence Bonner has called it a night. We're also getting word Evan Black in the number 92 machine has called it a night. Wonder what's happened to him. We'll see if I can do some investigation work here on
While you do that investigation work, one of the things I was actually showing the 04 Mark Myers for is that you were talking about people that are staying out, making it to lap 61, 60. I was scrolling through the field to see what time people went down pit road, and here's what I've determined. Mark Myers was the only driver to make it. He's not the only driver, but he's gone the furthest without pitting. He went all the way to lap 66 before he went down pit road. So I don't know if that's going to mean anything. Currently, he is a lap down. As a matter of fact, 23 drivers that have been able to lap him. So I don't think it's going to really work out for him. But considering the fact that he's 35th, and that's a gain of 4 spots from where he started, he may be able to get a couple spots at the end of the race, but nothing to really. It's not going to be contending for a win for sure.
So we do know, at least that gives us an indication, Carlos, that you can go about 132 laps on back-to-back stints. So that will, in my eyes, tell me that some of those drivers who pitted a little bit earlier under that first round of pit stops, they can probably still make a two-stop strategy work. It will mean that their last two stints will have to be quite long, longer than a lot of the other cars, but they can still do it. And with the way that the tires have been plateauing, that might not be that bad of an issue, because you still have the brief period of time in there where you got those fresh tires, you have that fresh rubber, the go-get-it time, I'm going to call it. That time where you can really make up ground on the other cars. They're still going to have that, but then they're going to get into that long plateau time where they're not gaining or losing on kind of the other cars on an alternate strategy with, 10-lap fresher tires or whatnot. So we'll see how that all plays out here tonight. Now would be around the period of time where you would start to see those drivers come down pit road, because we're just now getting to the halfway mark here in tonight's 30 vs. Sim Racing Texas 250. Scott Eckridge, your race leader, at the halfway mark. Now would be the time when we'd see those drivers on the three-stop strategy come back down pit road, and we haven't really seen anyone. So it does seem like the two, and maybe drivers realize that now. Maybe some have thought about using a three-stop strategy and change their strategy as the race is going on, but I haven't seen anyone down pit road just yet, so we will see if anyone does, but I don't expect anyone to, as we see this battle right here. The number 27 machine, Jordan Harnish, out there on the racetrack, up there near the front of the field once again, but Braxton DeWeese just made that move for the 6th position. Harnish, who's had some fantastic speed this season, Carlos, but just hasn't had the finishes to show for it in the number 27 Beef Jerky's Cheesecakes Emporium Ford Mustang. Here again inside the top 10. Behind him is the number 18 machine of Doug Mullins, the wine, a slice pizza bar experience on the Will Walker Racing number 18 machine. He's back there in the 8th position trying to run down the car in front of him. But now's that period of time, Carlos, where you really have to start talking about averages, lap times, who's losing, who's coming, who's gaining ground on the others. Doug Mullins right now, he's about 0.2 of a second faster than Jordan Harnish. The reason why, Doug Mullins has about 5-lap fresher tires, so we do expect Mullins to close in on the back of that number 27 here over the next couple of laps. Woody Mahan a little bit further back now. He has older tires, but he's actually gaining ground on the cars in front of him as well. So some drivers possibly just saving their tires a little bit more. Jonathan Cadell running good lap times right now back in the 12th position. He's running down a couple of cars in front of him, but no one out there on the racetrack right now is as fast as Greg Evans. He's been the fastest car on the lead lap over the past 5 laps. But bad news for Greg Evans, he finds himself almost 10 seconds behind our current race leader, Scott Eckridge.
Yeah, the field is definitely splitting up a lot. But Peter, I'm gonna let you handle this. But in the back of my head, I'm getting this yell. I don't know from where, but I'm getting a feeling that a certain somebody wants us to go through the Menards through the field.
I'm gonna say that I know who that person is. But currently, Scott Eckridge, the number 70 AMSOIL machine, currently out front, has been absolutely dominant so far in that Chevrolet. 3 wins to his name already this season. We've talked about it many times here tonight. He is looking for number 4, and all things looking good so far for Eckridge to win number 4. In the 2nd position here right now is Johnny Avila, who was very, very quick last week at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And of course, all of us talked about Avila making just his 2nd start last week in the American Esports Association Premier Series here. And he's just been pretty darn quick. He was pretty darn good when we were at Phoenix a couple of weeks back. Finished inside the top 10 there, and then got that top 5 last week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And here again tonight, he's up there in contention for a podium. So we got to keep our eyes on Avila as this season goes on, but all things looking good right now for the number 63. 3rd spot right now is Tyler Seville. Carlos, he's your pick for tonight in that number 11. A little bit of a new look on that car since last week, and wearing those shades and looking pretty sporty out there. Nothing really going wrong for the number 11 machine. He just finds himself 8.9 seconds behind your race leader, Scott Eckridge, at this junction of the race, trying to keep all 4 corners of that race car nice and clean to fend off the car who's behind him. That's Greg Evans, who has been one of the faster cars on the racetrack over the last couple of laps. reeling in Tyler Seville by about 1/10 of a second per lap, just 7/10 of a second back behind the number 11 machine. You'll find the Hacksaw PC's number 2 of Evans. He was actually winner of a Hacksaw PC last year. That was the series prize for the champion. And Greg Evans has been such a big supporter of Hacksaw PCs with all the great work that Nick has helped him out with that PC and getting it all up and running and getting exactly what Greg Evans wanted. That number 2 Hacksaw PC's machine looking mighty clean out there on the racetrack, running in the 4th spot. Steve Yenish, one of the Yenish brothers, he was one of the early adopters to pit road in that number 23 machine a little while ago. He's 5 seconds back behind Greg Evans, which here at Texas Motor Speedway, that's a pretty decent chunk, but Steve is out there. Great job here tonight, qualifying up there near the front of the field in 7th. We saw a little bit of a bobble early on by Steve, but he's been able to rebound for what is so far a top 5 run. Braxton DeWeese, just outside the top 5, has been closing in on the car in front of him over the last 10 or so laps, possibly due to a little bit fresher tires. But Braxton here, only 17-year-old. Yes, that's right, folks. One of the younger drivers in the field here tonight, showing his muscle here in the field. But nonetheless, once again, another pretty good run here. We've heard definitely good things about his pace, and we're seeing that out there on the racetrack tonight. Jordan Harnish, we've mentioned a couple times that he has had some struggles getting the finish he has deserved, some pit road troubles, and getting involved in some scuffles. Jordan here tonight trying to put all the pieces together, cross the T's, dot the I's, to see if he can work his way with a top 10 finish at the end of the night. And gotta say, so far so good for the 27 doing that. Back behind him, Doug Mullins, that wine machine. We talked about how he was closing in on the number 27 machine just a little bit. Well, he hasn't quite been able to gain on that car ahead as much as we kind of expected, but he's currently sitting there in the 8th spot, just about 5/10 of a second or so in front of the number 55 machine of Brian Yazik, who once again is knocking on the door. Of course, Yazik last week, one of those drivers who played the long game at the Atlanta Motor Speedway and was able to walk away with a fantastic finish of 3rd in the HPPSimulation.com Ford, and possibly using a little bit of strategy again this week. He was one of the last few drivers to head down pit road. At least he was on pit road after, excuse me, I take that back. He was one of the early adopters to pit road. He was one of those drivers who decided to come down early, and he's been actually clawing his way up now that these tires have kind of all plateaued with a couple of the cars around him. Right back behind him, Jonathan Cadell, you see him right there drinking a picture of...
He's drinking a picture.
Can of Natty Light. He's drinking a picture. Got the counter right now on those Natty Lights at 1. So he hasn't had much free time to... Yeah, only 1. He was at 1 when you mentioned him earlier in the race. I got one eye on the Steel Horse Live Twitch stream right now. He's at 1. And he's running right behind that number 55 machine of Brian Yazik as well. In fact, I'm incredibly impressed with the ultra-low latency on Twitch right here. But in fact, he is now all over the back bumper of Doug Mullins, battling for what is now the 9th position, because the 55 of Yazik was able to get around that number 18. So we'll keep our eyes on this battle here for just a brief moment, because Cadell's trying to get himself another spot, and there are cars right behind him queuing to get around Doug Mullins here, because Jeff Yenish in the number 89 machine, the other Yenish brother, both of them having a strong run here tonight. Yenish now knocking on the door of a top 10 with that number 18 right in front of him. Keeping all corners on the car. And Carlos, that's one thing I'm really impressed with here tonight. We saw it at Atlanta Motor Speedway. A lot of drivers struggle to keep the right side of their car nice and clean. As, oh man, we almost spoke too soon there. There's Thomas George in the number 88 machine, also involved in this battle. And looks like the 18 of Mullins is just going to go up to the top side, and he's going to lose 2 spots here as Thomas George now side by side with Jeff Yenish. Yenish was on pit road 43.5 laps ago. Thomas George 41 laps ago. So these two drivers are relatively same wear on their Goodyear rubber, but looks like the 88 of George is going to take away the 10th position. As we got a car on pit road, it's the number 18 machine. If Doug Mullins was your 10th place car just a couple of laps ago, he's going to come down with 67 laps to go, and that is right on the edge of that window, Carlos, of making it to the end of the race on this, what will presumably be his final stop.
And I believe recently, I think Tyler Seville may have gotten passed by Greg Evans, because Tyler Seville is no longer in third. Greg Evans is now the new third place driver.
Yep, that has indeed happened. So we mentioned that Evans was closing in on Tyler Seville, so we missed that to pass for the third position. But indeed, like Carlos said, that number 11 now back to fourth. Here is the number 5, Braxton DeWeese on pit road. Comes down to his pit crew. Got to hit that 45-mile-an-hour speed limit right at the yellow cone, and I think that's exactly what we saw out of Braxton right there. Got to give a big shout-out to Mr. Steelhorse Live himself, Jonathan Cadell, for what I would say an acrobatic entry into pit road last time. Got completely sideways, but was able to get it down to 45 miles an hour, so the iRacing speed police didn't give him a ticket. But he was all kinds of sideways. And I'm not all too surprised because, contact. The 04 machine, Mark Myers, making contact with Danny Gutierrez in turn number 1. And that was very close, probably the closest I've seen to us having a caution flag here tonight. And in this mix, the number 18 machine at Doug Mullins is trying to slice and dice his way through on the fresh tires. We'll go back and see this contact. This was coming to the contact, coming out of turn number 4. The contact happened at the center of turn number 1 and 2. That's Jackson van Volkenberg in the number 12 machine right there. But watch this very tight right here. The 04 slides up the racetrack. There's that contact, and Danny Gutierrez there in that 08 machine. What a stellar save there, Carlos. And that was going 160 miles an hour.
That was indeed. We're seeing more drivers going down pit road, and seeing these drivers kind of separate themselves and see, who can stay out, who can come in, and just what is the perfect time to pit. Because right now, this is the last stop should there not be a caution. So these drivers need to make sure that they nail it perfectly fine. Otherwise, they're looking at themselves, going to be mad at each other because they just threw away a potential good finish.
Yes, side-by-side battle. Well, was a side-by-side battle for the 6th position between Brian Yazek and Jonathan Cadell. Give that spot to the number 96 of Cadell. He was just able to get around the HPPsimulation.com Ford. So once again here tonight, the Extreme Sim Racing 96 Toyota Camry showing up at the end of the race when it really does matter. Brian Yazek going to peel off down onto pit road here with just about 61 laps remaining at the Texas Motor Speedway. So about 90 miles left here in the Dirty Bird Sim Racing 250. Big shout out to Dirty Bird Sim Racing for jumping on board and sponsoring tonight's event. Next week's race, easy for me to say, right? At Martinsville. Doesn't have a sponsor yet. So, folks, if you're watching and you want to sponsor the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, you want to get in on the action, you want to support the series here tonight, you can name it whatever you want to. We saw one race, Carlos, right here on 3 Wide TV that was sponsored by someone's parents this past Saturday night.
Yeah, we're not going to mention the racing league, but the race was essentially the driver appreciation 250 sponsored by Kevin Steele's parents, since his parents are the ones that are funding the broadcast. So it was hilarious. The quick short story is that they asked his parents if they wanted the race broadcasted, and his parents said yes. These drivers are going to struggle in Bristol dirt. I want to see the torture, and so that ended up being called that. So thank you so much to Kevin Steele's parents for broadcasting those races. Cody Spunker's crashed.
Caution flag is out. The number 19 machine has gone around in turn number 4. And folks, that is not going to be good for some of the drivers who just came down pit road, like Brian Yazek. Let's see if we can see exactly what happened to the number 19 machine. Now, this was actually, I think, some of the same cars involved in that group that we were just looking at. He might have just been trying to get to pit road, and just wrong place, wrong time, right in front of your race leader, believe it or not. That was Scott Eckrich right there. And maybe Scott Eckrich being there in that pack was kind of making these drivers think in the back of their heads, I got the leader behind me, I got to get to pit road. And I think Cody Spiker there might have been thinking about coming to pit road. Let's see if we can maybe slow this one down just a little bit, Carlos. We're riding on board here with the DMLC Racing Channel machine. That's Pete Baskins, I do believe, and there's a little bit of contact there with Adam Jersky, put him into the outside wall, and you just saw a brief flash there of the number 70 machine. But my oh my, that definitely is going to change the landscape here at Texas Motor Speedway just a little bit. Here we go, on board with Cody Spiker, and let's see if we can determine whether or not he was trying to get to pit road. Oh, you know what? I don't know if he was trying to get to pit road or just checking up there for Danny Gutierrez, who was definitely getting to pit road.
I don't think people had their hands out.
Yeah, that could just be one of those deals. Wrong place, wrong time. We did have most of the field down pit road. We'll get one more look at this
that
one.
was
Yep, Adam
Jersky that
Jersky
made contact.
Cody Spiker. Now look at Jason Stewart there in the number 1 machine. Does he get a piece of it? Doesn't look like he does. And look at your race leader there, Scott Eckrich. Man, oh man, the race leader could have had his race completely thrown away there. But luckily for Eckrich, we'll ride on board with him and get his look of this happening. You see 3 wide. I'm sure he was already puckering at 3 wide there, but then at this point, he's probably thinking, oh my goodness, my race is toast here. Cody Spiker.
They're 4 wide. 5 wide for a second.
Yeah, Cody Spiker almost had it saved there, folks. And got to give him props there. I know he eventually went around, but he was so close to saving that number 19 machine. It's not even funny. I've been right there with him. He had that thing going back straight. Just wasn't able to get it completely underneath him. So props to him. And props for not turning right up in front of your race leader, folks. But that is the first caution flag of the night here in the Dirty Bird Sim Racing 250. So we don't have back-to-back caution-free races, but here again, a low caution count nonetheless, Carlos.
Okay, you say that. We still have plenty of laps for these drivers to prove you wrong. That being said, unlikely they will. These are some of the best drivers I've had the privilege of broadcasting. But Sam is absolutely happy you jinxed them. Because Sam, your wallet's going to get a little bit heavier this week.
Yeah, of course, the way that the caution bounty works, we actually have had quite a few questions about it from drivers. The caution bounty, $10 goes into the pot every week until you have a caution-free race. And then once you have caution-free races, the drivers who don't have any incident points during that race. So if you've had some type of scuffle,
well, hold on.
Contact with the wall.
Let me correct you there. It's guaranteed for the highest finishing driver with 0 X's to get those $10. After that, whatever is remaining of the $10 will go to a random draw of whatever drivers on that race that got 0 X's.
Yeah, well, I was prefacing the 0X thing first, but yes, you're completely right. So, you know, we'll add an extra 10. The pot was only $10 here tonight because we had caution-free race last week in Atlanta. So the pot next week is going to be $20. And speaking of next week, like I said, it's Martinsville next week. And if we see a caution-free race at Martinsville, I think Sam Maxwell should make it just double.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a caution-free race.
I have on D-Class with the K&N trucks, cars.
That doesn't count, Carlos. Cautions are turned off.
But you say you didn't see a caution-free race. I'm telling you I have. I mean, it was a wreck fest. The track was blocked.
That race?
2, but still.
Exactly. That doesn't count. I don't think I've ever seen a caution-free league race. I'll preface that. But folks, we're about to go back green here at Texas Motor Speedway. Thank you for joining us here on 3Y TV here tonight. We recently hit 800 subscribers, and last I looked, that number continues to go up. We're up to 814, so I think we've got about 14 subscribers in the past week, and that is all due to you guys. We really do appreciate it, and hopefully you're getting a good chuckle here tonight in the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, Dirty Bird Sim Racing Texas 250. Of course, not the only race in my home state that we're going to have this year. Yes, that's right. We're going to Circuit of the Americas here mid-season. Some of the drivers aren't too excited about that one, but they are excited about going back green. And Scott Eckrich on the loud pedal getting a huge jump at the number 70 machine. Already jumping out. But Carlos, one thing I'm noticing about that Amsoil Chevrolet is there is a little bit of right front damage on that race car. I'm curious to know if that's going to affect his handling characteristics of that car. You can barely make it out there on the right front. There.
Something to note. Yeah, you see some damage. Something to know. I didn't even notice this. He held on to third gear all the way till 3/4 of turn 2, and then he shifted into fourth. These guys have a really, really tall third gear.
Yeah, and here comes the number 63 of Johnny Avila. I'm wondering if that right front damage is actually coming back to hurt that number 70 machine. Maybe he didn't want to. Oh, contact! There's a car going around in turn number 2. Caution flag is out. And oh, heavy contact in the back of the pack. This is a big one, folks. Here at Texas Motor Speedway, cautions breeding cautions. And it's Steve Yenish, the 23 machine, the Tampa SUV Rentals.com Toyota Camry, who had such a fantastic start to the race here tonight, has gone around in turn number 2. It was a long slide, and that's the number 16 machine going backwards on the racetrack. I think that was the number 16 machine who came in late. That's Nick Gardner smoking in that car. But let's see if we can dial up and see what happened here to Yenish. Running right in front of AJ Digby, the 14 machine down there, and there's a little bit of contact there, and you see the 23 slides up the racetrack. It's all good. Oh man, Kevin Klein getting involved in that one. Yenish starting to come back down the racetrack. The 4 of Klein getting involved. Great job there by Klein to ult at 4 out of that car. It was completely stopped there on the racetrack. The 16 of Gardner also getting some heavy damage. Here we go on board. Is this Jackson von Valkenburg here, Carlos, or is it Kevin Klein?
Klein.
And number 4 machine, man. No, man, just nowhere for Klein to go. You see someone, I think that's Troy Haight there, kind of flipping on through, getting a little bit lucky, like you said, but Kevin Klein's night appears to be done in the number 4 machine. We'll get one more look at this one on the replay, but cautions, breeding cautions here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Here's the number 16 machine through the smoke, and that 23 coming down. Really nowhere for Gardner to go. I think he was expecting that car to stay up there on the top side of the racetrack, and the smoke and the high speeds here at the 1.5 mile no limits Texas Motor Speedway causing a little bit of a problem there, and trying to show off for the fans, trying to be the world's best backwards driver, but when your engine is smoking there, probably not going to help out too much, unfortunately. And there's that contact. The number 14 just got into the left rear of Yenish, and it was on from there. You see AJ Digby there going down onto the apron, almost collecting his teammate, number 29 machine, Jimmy McKee, and the 8 machine doing a good job staying off the back of the 29. In fact, all things considered there, Carlos, that gaggle of about 5 cars, great job for all of those drivers to not wad up and make things worse.
Yeah, indeed. You said that was the, who was that car? You said it was a 28? That got really lucky, Troy Haight. Let's go on board and see what he saw, because that must have been something indeed.
Yeah, here we go on board with Troy Haight. And, you know, folks, sometimes in iRacing you get lucky, sometimes you don't. This is one of those times where I believe Troy Haight, we're about to see him clip right through a car, and right there. Yep,
wow.
Just like that, no damage. Just like that, no damage. When that happens to you, you just kind of go, well, okay. Thank you, iRacing.
Racing gods are smiling down on him today.
Yeah, and of course, Troy Haight in that number 28 machine, he had a good start to the race. Now, unfortunately for Troy, I think he was one of those drivers who got trapped a lap down in the pit cycles. But he was up there near the front of the field for the first stint of the race, and now he's being scored down in the 26th position. We'll see if he comes down pit road. You do see a couple of drivers, AJ Digby on pit road, Tim Knott, the 33rd placed machine, I believe that's Gary Reynolds Jr. on pit road, and also the 36th place driver, Pete Baskins, also on pit road. So not sure if they're getting damage repaired, or I know Gary Reynolds Jr., he's had quite a bit of damage for a good majority of the race. I'm sure he's getting some of that damage repaired. But for Steve Yenish, Nick Gardner, Both of those cars do not appear to be able to return out to the racetrack, and Nick Gardner has already left the server. So unfortunate for the number 60 Nick Gardner here tonight. Will be a retiree of the race, joining Evan Black, Clarence Bonner, and I believe Cody Spiker as well, has called it a night here on 3Y TV and the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Dirty Bird Sim Racing Texas 250. We have 7 likes right now. Let's see if we can get a like spike. Let's see if we can hit 12. I think that's what we hit last week here on the channel. And of course, likes do go into the YouTube algorithm. I say it each and every week that sometimes we can get those likes and just add a little bit more exposure. That's what we want to do here. We want to get those likes and add exposure for people like Dirty Bird Sim Racing, like Sim Speed Shop, like American Regardless, like Hacksaw PCs, the sponsors here that make the series possible. They put in their own money. They're trying to get, they're sponsoring the league. They want to get something out of it as well. So it is up to you guys to help us out here on YouTube, and also, share the link, like 3Y TV on Facebook. And we really appreciate you guys joining in for the show here tonight. Meanwhile, down the back stretch, we're about to go back to Green Flag Racing. That is the good news. To get all that sponsor stuff out of the way, we're about to go back to Green Flag Racing, and hopefully cautions not breeding cautions again here at Texas Motor Speedway.
One thing to quickly consider before we do go back to green is some of these drivers going down pit road with these extra cautions. They only have 4 sets of tires, additional 4 sets of tires in this race, and some of these may be running low already.
Yeah, I think that most of these drivers will save that extra set of tires till about, 25 laps to go, maybe 30 laps to go. But they're going to be on the loud pedal on these tires right now. On board with your race leader, Scott Eckridge, once again jumping out to the lead. We saw Johnny Avila in the number 63 machine challenge him for that race lead there just before we had that last caution. So far, everyone making it through turn number 1 and 2 cleanly, so that's always good to see. But here comes Avila around the outside of the number 70 machine. Don't think he's going to find a whole lot of speed up there at this point of the run. He's going to open up the door for the number 2 of Greg Evans, the other driver to have won 3 races this season, but Avila holding tough. And Carlos, what I'm seeing is that number 70 up front of Eckridge. Not sure if it's the draft down the front stretch. Oh, big bobble there out of Greg Evans' number 2 machine, but that number 70 just doesn't seem to be fully up to the pace. Evans gonna block the number 11 machine of Tyler Seville all the way down to the inside, but Seville's got a run down there. He's got to the inside, but that was a huge block by the number 2 of Evans.
And lurking in 5th place, Jonathan Goodell, the natty count maybe up to 3 at this point with the extra cautions, but right now Goodell running strong in 5th place. As we're seeing these drivers starting to single file out right now, but this is what I mentioned earlier. We saw on the initial start of the race, these drivers were, it was a little crazy that first lap, but those other couple laps, they were settling down, trying to find a rhythm in this track. There's also another reason we're not going to go into why, but there's an issue with the setup. So these drivers, not fully confident right now in what these cars could have been doing. But as we got a restart, we got another restart. This is a 3rd restart, I believe, if my math is correct. These guys are going a little bit crazy. They're going side by side. They're blocking. They're battling for the lead. Of course, the lap count is low, so we don't have that many laps remaining. But these drivers are more confident with their abilities and with the abilities of the drivers they're competing with.
Yeah, that is for sure. As you see, still the 2 and the 11 now reversed of where they were a couple laps ago. The 2 of Evans getting back by Tyler Seville. That right front damage on Scott Eckridge doesn't seem to be affecting him all too much, as he's still your race leader here tonight, has led a majority of the laps. Here comes Thomas George, the number 88 machine. Remember, Carlos, he was up there last week, 2nd place finisher at Atlanta Motor Speedway, up there battling for 6th right now with Jeff Yenish in the number 89. So this side-by-side battle between those two looking really good here as they jump across the start-finish line. Battle for the race lead, though. Johnny Avila's gotten to the inside of the number 70 machine with a late lunge off into turn number 1. Wow, this is the first time we've seen side-by-side battle for the race lead here tonight, as Avila trying to get to the race lead with just over 40 laps to go.
These guys are making it clear they are here to race. Scott was leading the majority of the race, but now he is leading no more. As put that unsponsored number 63 of Johnny Avila, the Canadian driver, up into first place. Of course, Greg Evans, last year's Hacksaw PC Premier Series Cup Series champion, is in second, and he's no slouch either. Tyler Seville, my pick. He is starting to prove me right, Tyler. Come on, man. You made a fool out of me this whole race. Now you're starting to make me feel like a champ.
And you can tell just like that. The octaves and Carlos Acosta go up. The action heating up here at Texas Motor Speedway as Avila gets a little bit of a bump there from the number 2 of Greg Evans going through the second kink there in the front quad oval here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Evans now hounding the back of the 63. Scott Eckrich now sliding back to 4th into the clutches of Jonathan Cadell. Carlos, the natty counter is at 3 here tonight.
Is it really?
Right now. It is at 3, so he's taking those little breaks that we've had in the action to, interact with his fans on his Twitch channel.
Here's the thing, though.
So Cadell,
that first one.
Here comes Cadell.
There he
Go
goes.
ahead.
Yeah, he's trying to get by Scott. Here's the thing with Cadell, though, the Cadell, as when the natty counter goes up, is what a block for the lead. As the natty counter goes up, his skills goes up as well. That first one took, more than half of the race to finish, but those other 2, that was probably done in a span of 30 laps, so he is really getting ready to crank it up.
Carlos, like I said, I got one of my eyes on Steel Horse Live, and someone clipped on Twitch the fact that Scott Eckrich got past. That's how much it means that Scott Eckrich is up there on the racetrack, but Avila throwing the blocks up there at the front of the field. Greg Evans in the number 2 machine trying to find a way around the number 63. Jonathan Cadell trying to find a way around Scott Eckrich, who rides in the 4th spot. But the front 3 cars, you could throw an absolute blanket over them. Nose to tail, looking like it's Talladega, not Texas Motor Speedway here tonight. They are literally nose to tail through turn number 3 and 4. Here comes the number 2 of Evans. The 11 throwing a huge block on the number 70 of Eckrich. Eckrich having to check up. Here comes Cadell now, going to pull to the inside of Eckrich. This is battling like it's the last lap at Texas Motor Speedway. We still have 37 laps to go this time by.
What?
And
Where did Will Mercer come from? Will Mercer's up to 7th. We saw him running outside the top 10 the majority of the race. I thought he was a chump, but now he's a champ.
Yeah, Wurzler has been slicing and dicing.
Contact 70 goes around. What a save! What?
There was contact there. I think Thomas George getting into the back of the number 70 machine. Jonathan Cadell had just made the pass, and George made that late lunge, and there was definite contact. But what a save, Carlos. You mentioned it, that Scott Eckrich, a wheelman, an absolute wheelman, is going to drop all the way from 5th, well back. We'll get this replay. You see Thomas George making that move. There's the contact. Eckrich now sliding back to 11th, so he has led a majority of this race now outside the top 10. Johnny Avila continues to lead over Greg Evans, Tyler Seville, Jonathan Cadell, Mr. Steel Horse Live there, up there in 4th. Will Wurzler up into 5th. My goodness, the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series Dirty Bird Sim Racing Texas 250, folks. It's living up to the No Limits hype.
Yeah, side by side, these 2 drivers go for the race lead. Johnny Avila now has the lead, and he's trying to do the best he can to hang on to it. But Greg Evans, he wants to continue his dominating ways as he's trying to get a pass on the outside line.
Yeah, that number 2, if he can make a pass out there on the high line, that will be a bold statement. Very difficult to make a pass on the high line, especially when you don't have another car tucked up behind you. But look at Tyler Seville, Carlos. A lot of people mentioned back a couple of weeks at Homestead, Miami, that we thought that Tyler Seville was the driver who's going to walk away with the 3YTV 200 back there. He wasn't able to get the job done. But here tonight, another 1.5 mile racetrack, just like Homestead, Miami. Of course, it looks a little bit different from the year, but both 1.5 miles. That number 11, he knows how to get these jobs on these intermediate racetracks. And here tonight, making that pass now, it looks like he was able to clear the number 2. Yes, he has. So Tyler Seville, Carlos, your pick. He's up to 2nd, but he's going to have to get around the number 63 of Avila, who's been very strong here over the last 15 laps or so.
It's the power of the shades, my friend. That's what's doing. He's got, caution's out.
Caution
AJ
flag
Digby, Gary
out.
Reynolds.
Yeah, the 14 machine of Digby is smoking on the front stretch, and it looks like it will be day done for the number 14, but I think it happened up in front of him with Danny Gutierrez in the number 08 machine, and oh my goodness, you watch AJ Digby. Carlos, we need to go on board with Digby because this doesn't really show. It all kind of happened in front of him, and Digby here.
Oh my goodness!
The track got blocked. The track got completely blocked there. John Eckhart in the number 45 machine was the Camping World Toyota Camry that you saw there. But something happened with Danny Gutierrez in the 08 machine. I think that's where we need to watch to see if we can kind of figure out where. Ooh, there's the 44 machine getting loose. But you see, that Thomas George there in the 88. Who was that side by side with the 08 machine? Because that's kind of where it seemed like everything started to go wrong. There's number 13.
We got to slow it down a little here.
We got a piece. Yeah. We always have to slow these things down. We're not super fast. That is the number 82 there of Jamie Moore. It looks like Danny Gutierrez is well out of shape before that. Gets into the back of the 08 machine, and you see Gutierrez still trying to save the race car. And then while he was trying to save the race car, that's when you have the likes of John Eckhart on the scene with Gary Reynolds Jr. on the scene as well. And it was just an accordion effect. I think the 82 slowed down, the 13 slowed down. All of a sudden, the number 45 of Eckhart was on the scene in the Camping World Toyota, and then AJ Digby in the number 14 machine. All of a sudden, the track was completely blocked, and you can see him spinning down, impaling that inside wall, turning into an absolute Beyblade down there, spinning right around and up the racetrack.
Better rip.
Boy, that is not going to be the finish that AJ Digby was hoping for in the Will Warser Racing machine coming into tonight in the top 10 in the point standings, folks. Tough break for the Twitter verified number 14 machine, and there is the number 13 machine, just one number lower, Gary Reynolds Jr., who is smoking in the iHeartRadio Chevrolet down the backstretch. He will have to get to pit road, and you see he's actually right in front of your race leader, Johnny Avila, who was your race leader because, or it still is your race leader. I take that back because, Carlos, we had all of your leaders come down pit road. We missed that fact. But Johnny Avila, Tyler Seville, Greg Evans, Will Warser, Jonathan Cadell, Jeff Yanish, all those drivers came down pit road, got fresh tires, topped it up in fuel. They're good to the end.
If we don't get what to go, Peter, let's go see if we can bring up one of these drivers to interview.
Let's see if we can pick up your pick here tonight, driver of the number 11 machine, because we've seen Tyler Seville be so fast. But let's see if we can get him. Hopefully no hot mic. Tyler Seville, Peter Short, 3 Wide TV booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what, we talked about you earlier in the race. You seemed like you were falling back. We've got a couple of cautions now. You're now up there in second. What do you think you got for the number 63 machine? Do you think you can walk away with a win, kind of avenge what you lost back at Homestead?
Well, that'll be the goal. He was putting some crazy blocks on there, which is only going to get more and more dangerous as the laps tick down. I definitely think I have the speed, so it looks to be like it's going to be an exciting show.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to be a fun one over the closing laps. But I'll tell you what have you thought about the intensity here over the last 30 laps or so? I mean, we had those long green flag runs, and all of a sudden things really living up to the No Limits Texas name.
Yeah, I mean, we all got thrown a curveball to start out because the incorrect setup was chosen, so we've been dealing with the open setup versus the regular one. But it seems like everybody's gotten the hang on it, and it's 100% for the rest of the way.
All right, well, definitely interesting thoughts there on that number 11 machine. We'll let you get back to it, Tyler. Best of luck here in the final 30 laps or so.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, folks, that's going to do it with our interview here, mid-race interview there with Tyler Seville. We'll let him get back to his Will Warser Racing teammates. Of course, one of his teammates, the number 14 of AJ Digby, having quite a bit of damage and still sitting on pit road in that race car. Tough night for him as he entered the night in the top 10 in the point standings, as I mentioned. But Carlos, another thing about the point standings that we always have to look at here in the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, is the battle for 20th place in points. And a lot of people watching probably don't know what that means. If you're in the top 20 in points, you actually are guaranteed a spot into the race. You don't have to qualify. We saw a couple of drivers here tonight go home, including the number 43 machine and the number 9 machine. 2 drivers did not qualify here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. We did get to see Kevin Klein race as one of the alternate drivers, but drivers coming into tonight around that 20th place in points, you can see him right there. Steve Yenish, he's having a good night, or had a good night going until his problems. Jeff Yenish up there is still having a good night, so you know you have to be mindful of that. We saw what happened there to Danny Gutierrez. He's 19th place in points. So we'll see how everything sorts out here in the final 30 laps or so, because the green flag about to fly. Indeed, it has flown, as Johnny Avila, the number 63, will lead us back to the green flag. Once again, a good jump from the race leader on the restart. Tyler Seville, they're going to slot into second. Greg Evans going to slot into third. They're side by side back behind them. Jeff Yenish and Will Warser side by side. Not a great start there for the number 96 machine of Jonathan Cadell. He's back into sixth, but all things considered, once he came back to the American Sim Racing Series after a couple of year hiatus, he started racing here back in the NASCAR Racing 2003 season days, but he's back here. He's been showing a lot of pace here in the series. Side by side now with Will Warser. That's a battle for fifth.
Oh man, these guys have really weird angles going into turns 1 and 2. Could have sworn some of these guys would have been coming up into somebody else's. The number 96. Jonathan Cadell makes some slight contact with Will Worsler. Will Worsler has to back it up. Gonna lose a couple spots in the process.
Yeah, Carlos, that's one of those things where I think that still might have been a little bit of netcode. There might have been contact, or there, would have probably been contact if things continued on, but it was netcode that kind of bounced them off one another. But Cadell here, he's gathered himself back up after that contact, running to the inside of the number 89 of Jeff Yenish. He wants to get back up there into the fourth spot.
Ooh.
That's where he was before that caution flag flew. Coming there down the backstretch, I think that's the number 5 machine back there, Braxton Luis. No, it is not. Who was that? That was Will Worsler and Corey Silva, the number 94 machine. One of those Dirty Bird Sim Racing drivers up there is Corey Silva. Again, just been consistent this season as Corey Silva. Enters the night 4th place in point, and just been so consistent every single week. Hasn't been able to get to victory lane, but Silva has finished 4th at Atlanta, 7th at Phoenix, 7th at Vegas, 6th at Auto Club, 9th at Homestead. His only bad race this season was back at Daytona, but Silva only has one top 5 to his name, but is 4th place in point just due to that consistency. As we ride on board with today, we just talked to Tyler Seville, Will Worcester driver.
Oh,
Carlos?
Peter, got a little bit loose there. Peter, something to note is if you want to get yourself some good point standings, you got to get points as many as you can. Tyler Seville just ran the fastest lap time of the race 2 laps ago, edging out over Johnny Avila. Johnny Avila set 2 fastest laps, and then Tyler Seville set 1 really, really fast lap. So Tyler Seville currently has the fastest lap bonus point. Isn't that right? Jim Foose, who's going to probably type in chat, he's probably already typing it right now, saying that Tyler Seville is more likely going to be getting that 1 bonus point because currently has the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, the track temperature is cooling down, but as the tires continue to wear off, their pace will continue to drop.
Oh, there he goes.
But here comes the fastest man at the Texas Motor Speedway. Tyler Seville trying to go around the outside. We saw the number 2 of Greg Evans try this a couple laps ago, but Seville has a great run through the center of 1 and 2, and I think Seville's going to pull off the pass around the high side halfway down the backstretch. They're still tight. This is where you need those Midwest Simulations spotlights to figure out if the car is still below you. Almost had that pass made, but here comes Avila fighting back through 3 and 4. They're going to be side by side at the line. Might we see it finish like that at the end of the night? 9 1/1000ths of a second. Avila led that lap.
Yeah, it's very difficult to make that outside line work. We haven't really been seeing it do anything in real life, but these drivers are trying to make it work right now. And Tyler Seville, even though he did get cleared by Johnny, he's making that outside line work. And the question is, how long can he make that line work?
Carlos, I just have to say, if we could just see this type of racing at the real Texas Motor Speedway, I might actually go to the racetrack once upon a time. But, iRacing has made these tweaks. And these American Sim Racing Series drivers, they know how to get around these racetracks, and that's what we're seeing here tonight. These drivers making some moves, although Avila going to hold on to the race lead with now just 19 laps to go this time at the 1.5-mile racetrack. Coming through turn number 3 and 4. Did Avila there scrape the wall? I thought I saw some sparks fly from the right side of that number 63 Chevrolet, but he stays at speed. Hopefully that didn't damage that race car. He blasts his way through turn number 1 and 2 this time. You can see that gap there just growing just a little bit over the last couple of laps as Avila pulling away from Seville. They do have the lap traffic in front of them. I think that is the number 45 machine. It is indeed John Eckhart staying out of the way in the Camping World machine. Good. Oh, Eckhart in the wall. Eckhart in the wall. The 45 bouncing off the wall, and still bouncing off the wall is Eckhart, and the whole field able to get by, but all of a sudden that looked pretty sketchy there around the mid-pack, as it almost looked like that 45 was going to be pointing back down towards the track, but luckily Eckhart was able to keep it up against the wall as well as he could. He's still bouncing out off the wall, Carlos. His suspension must be shot.
Oh, yeah, I know the feeling when those suspension breaks. You're trying to turn as hard as you can, but it won't budge.
Yeah, we watched this replay right here. Meanwhile, out on the racetrack right now, new second place driver. It's a driver who has also won 3 races this season. We've been talking about Scott Eckrich all night long with all the laps that he's led. But Greg Evans in the number 2 machine, we watched that replay right here. Carlos, like you mentioned, Evans drops to the inside out of turn number 4. We didn't see a block out of the number 11 like we've seen out of the number 63 machine of Avila. And Evans just able to scoot on by. So Evans now all over the back bumper of Avila in the 63 machine. We saw Evans be really quick, Carlos, earlier in the race. We saw him able to get up to that second spot. He was just so far behind Scott Eckrich. But now that Eckrich is out of the picture, he's all the way back in the 13th position here. Coming to 15 to go. Evans has a good shot at winning the race.
Yeah, Evans is there. The question is Tyler Seville, did he let Evans go by so that those two can battle it out, or did his tires fade away trying to battle for the lead on the outside line? But right now, Greg Evans is right on the rear bumper of Johnny Avila as these two drivers are going around through turns number 3 and 4. The question is, what does anybody have for the current race leader? We saw the old leader, Scott Eckrich, dominate the whole whole 3 quarters of this race before the caution started dropping and his position started dropping as well, especially after contact with the number 88. Great recovery from the 70, but he's dropping back, or he dropped back, and he's all the way down 13th. But the question is, have the leader's been able to hold on to the lead? And Johnny Avila is trying to continue that pattern.
Yep, 13 laps to go this time by just under 20 miles here at Texas Motor Speedway. Tyler Seville there sitting in 3rd. What about Jonathan Cadell there in 4th? I'm sure he's just hoping to see a couple of these leaders get together there, Carlos, and maybe able to squeak away with a podium or a win here tonight. Says really gotta say that Jonathan Cadell has a tendency, that's a huge block out of Avila.
That's a bumper run.
Number 63 machine, and that number 2 machine pushing him up the racetrack, and the 2 of Evans just trying to get underneath them, not able to do so. 63 cuts them off there down the front stretch, but man, action heating up. 12 more laps to go. Going back to my point, oh man, Evans getting right up to the left rear quarter panel of Avila. He's just trying. He's trying everything he can to try and wash that 63 up the racetrack, but they go back single file. Going back to my point, Jonathan Cadell. We have seen Cadell over the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden at the end of the race, Carlos, pop up at Atlanta.
Somebody just blew an engine somewhere, I think.
We did see some smoke. I'm not seeing.
That might have been some
connection smoke.
Yeah,
it might have been some connection smoke. I'm not seeing anyone off the pace out there on the racetrack right now. But Cadell just has a tendency to sneak his way up towards the front of the field. Last week he did it at Atlanta based off of pit strategy. He did it at Phoenix with quite a bit of pace. And here tonight doing the same thing as we watch this gaggle of cars. Ooh, man, Jeff Yenish with a wiggle in the 89 machine. Oh, Thomas George. Are we going to go 3 wide on the front stretch? This never works out well at Texas Motor Speedway. somehow they're making it work out as they go off into the corner. Man, that was sketchy. Jeff Yenish holding the wheel steady in the number 89 machine. Lost a couple of positions and probably, you know, cooler heads prevailing there right here at the end of the race. But man, oh man, that was tight on the front stretch. We said it earlier in the race, Carlos. That's not where you want to go 3 wide at Texas.
You're not missing anything in the front. They're starting to separate as Johnny Avidas is trying to pull away slowly by slowly. Greg Evans and Johnny has already pulled away from Tyler Seville and Jonathan Cadell. They're all pretty much around the same spot, you know, the same distance away from each other. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and switch it over to the interval ticker, and then let's switch the vertical ticker all the way to last laps, I guess, to see what's going on. That's the distance to the car in front of them there on the vertical ticker. Horizontal ticker is going to be the last lap speed. But yeah, there's a gaggle of cars, or there was a gaggle of cars racing while we were focusing on the leaders, as we see there. The number 94 Corey Silva is trying to work his way past number 29 Will Worcester.
Yeah, so some good battling happening back there as we come to 7 laps to go this time by. We have Ryan Whiting, excuse me, in the chat saying Avila and Evans must be having the battle of their lives as my oh my, the 29 machine throwing a big block there on Corey Silva. This is the battle. Oh, contact! The 29 of Warsler caution. And caution flag gonna wave. And oh no!
70
of Eckridge. Yeah, wow. Eckridge, they're coming in a little late, picking up some front end damage. Tough break for a couple of those drivers. Now, here's the thing. There was that contact and, you know, was that worthy of a yellow flag, Carlos? We did see, I think, Van Valkenburg go through the grass. There's that contact, and that's going to be a tough one for the administrators to call whether or not Warser was pinching or the 94 was having his trouble. But, man, Eckridge get into the back of the 12. I think that was the 12 of Van Valkenburg there. But caution flag. Caution flag is out. Is this going to change everything?
I gotta say this, with the exception, as the leaders are going down pit road, with the exception of the 29 smacking the outside wall, that was almost a beautiful synchronized spin or like almost spin and recovery. Not sure what was going on with the 70. He did make some contact there. Not sure if the caution surprised everybody or what, but the field checked up and then the 70 made contact and pretty much damaged his car beyond a winning position.
So this is going to be interesting here, folks, because a couple of drivers stayed out. Majority of the field coming down, including Johnny Avila. Grant Brown in the 00, he might have only taken 2 tires on his race car. Nope, I take that back. But Avila's now out. 4 tires on that car. Greg Evans, 4 tires on his car. Avila holds station off pit road. Tyler Seville, he's going to come off pit road in 3rd. Will Warser, 4th car off pit road. Jonathan Cadell, 5th car off pit road. So I think Cadell lost the spot on pit road. But those were just relative. Those were not actual true positions out there on the racetrack because Brian Yazik, Braxton DeWeese, Jordan Harnish, and Doug Mullins. 4
this is
cars,
not gonna work.
Carlos, here, staying out.
Okay.
I'm going to take a deep breath here. I'm going to take a big, deep breath here because you got 4 cars up the front of the field that are going to be about a 1.5 seconds slower than the cars right behind them. The 55 here of Yazik, better hope he gets a stellar jump. And the 27 of Harnish, Braxton DeWeese, the 18, he better hope that those cars don't start racing him. He needs to get a good jump. The leader has the opportunity to go when he wants to, which gives him usually the opportunity to get a pretty good jump. If we're going to have probably a 3-lap shootout, maybe even a 2-lap shootout here when we go back green, what would be a natural green-white checker. I don't think we're going to have our first attempt at an overtime green-white checker.
Work. I know it's not going to work.
Man.
Peter, there was a time in iRacing where this would have worked. Or not would have worked, but there was a decent chance where you can maybe respect the hustle in case it did work out. But more often than not, it wasn't. This is not going to work. Because back then, before we had green-white checkers in iRacing, you could have hoped that you restart the race with like 3 laps to go, and then before you even get to turn 1, there's a wreck in the front stretch. because that's happened. I've seen it. I've seen somebody win at Charlotte Motor Speedway with a whole front end missing because they were involved in the previous caution. They stayed out and won the race because somebody wrecked in the front stretch. It could have happened. Now, Peter, how many attempts at green white checkers do these guys have? Because that many numbers, how many times they're going to have to get a caution before they get to turn 1? Because at the exit of turn 2, those drivers are not going to be in the lead.
Yeah, well, they do have a couple of attempts at a green-white checker, but Carlos, this is what I'm looking at on my live timing and scoring. And one of the questions in the chat from Craig Harris asks, does the top 4 have no tires left? Is that why they stayed out?
That could be it.
I believe the answer to that is yes, because Yazek, DeWeese, Harnish, and Mullins, all of those 4 drivers have pitted 4 times here tonight. Those are their 4 sets of tires. Avila, Evans, Seville, Cadell, they just pitted for their 4th time. So, everyone up there inside the top 13 positions, going back to Scott Eckridge, those drivers have pitted 4 times here tonight. So we believe that is probably the reason why the top 4 stayed out. They didn't have any reason to come down pit road because they didn't have any fresh tires down there. We saw that earlier in the race, I think, with Brian Yazek when he came down pit road, kind of got him off strategy. He was able to get his back onto the lead lap because he got, had a caution come out at a bad time. He's up there at the front. I think he's playing a little bit different strategy. We'll have to wait and see how this all pans out. You see the pace truck lights are off. We're going to have 3-lap shootout here at Texas Motor Speedway. And Carlos, I'm not going to say we're going to have 1 or 2 attempts at a green-white checker or even 3 attempts at a green-white checker. I'm just going to let it play out naturally. We just have to wait. I'm curious to know what the chat thinks, but we definitely have a lot of people in the chat right now on edge for what is going to be the final 3 laps.
Inside or outside? Where do you want to be? Very quickly. I want to be on the outside.
Man, I think if you're Johnny Avila right now and you're on the inside, it's going to be tough for you to make passes. I think Greg Evans is in the best spot, but we are back green, and that outside line did not get going. The 55 of Yazek got what he needed to. He needed that good restart. He wanted only 2 laps, though, as Avila down there on the inside group. Now he starts to get a little bit boxed in. The 27 and the 5. There's a little contact. Avila down on the bottom side of the racetrack. Here comes the 2 machine of Evans up the middle. Can he use the number 27 of Harnish at the pick? Yes, he can. He's going to use the 27 as a little bit of a pick. The 27's on the older tires. Like I said, Carlos, 63 gets boxed in. The outside's where you're going to want to be. Greg Evans up to second. 2 laps to go at Texas.
Oh, they might wreck there. 27's going to go around. What a save.
Harnish trying to save it, still saves it.
Oh,
and
no,
there's contact in the
no.
back. There's the contact. Caution flag out. Jersky, Yenish, Corey Silva, the driver, Mr. Consistently, we've talked about, and they're still wrecking back there. Mitch Brown, in his return to the series, is junked back there. Michael Larch, Michael Whiting in the 44 Brookside Equipment Sales Chevrolet. He might be stuck in the wall, but my, oh my. We're going to have to go back and watch this one on the replay, see how it all went down. Contact between Avila and Jordan Harnish. And we're going to have a green-white checker, folks.
Okay, so here's what I saw. Jordan Harnish. And I actually want to go a little bit further back. I'm going to, we're going to do this a little live here. Let's go further back, because here's what I saw. That is not who I wanted to see. Jordan Harnish. Here we go. Perfect. We'll go a little bit further back again. And let's go. This is what I saw from Chopper Cam. I'm not sure if you picked the same thing. So right there, you see the 27 right behind the 5. 5 is going to get loose, or probably has already gotten loose. And the 63 is going to get right by him. The 27, he sees them. Oh, they're on the side. Oh, I want to get out of their way. Let me go to the inside lane. Doesn't see the 63 there, and kind of accidentally blocks the 63. He was trying to do the right thing and let the faster cars go by on the outside, but he did not see a 63 down there. Can't do anything now. You can't move anywhere. You're stuck there. You're accidentally blocking Avila. Avila doesn't want to get passed by Seville. He looks down on the inside, makes contact with the 27, and you're gonna get those on their bigger jobs. That's what happened. Unfortunately, couldn't recover fully some net code with the 89, and that's $1 million graveyard.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. You know what? That's one of those
It's a wreck feast. It's a wreck feast.
Sure, it's a wreck feast. But I was just going to say, that's one of those situations where maybe those Midwest simulation spotlights might have come in handy, because the 63 of Avila, he just was showing his nose down there. And the 27 did start to come down, and it's just one of those things with racing. They're racing hard, and they made contact. And then it was on from there. Look at Jason Stewart, the number 1 machine, getting involved. The number 3 machine, that's Michael Larch, getting involved. And then all of a sudden, cars starting to come back up across the racetrack. And that's Nick Curling and the 10 machine getting a good chunk of it. I think Troy Hates involved on the right-hand side of your screen. There goes Danny Gutierrez spinning up the racetrack with that number 1 machine. Couldn't quite make out who that gray Ford was there. That, I think that was Grant Brown in the 00. Just got to look at that number.
The screen is
Michael
filled
Whiting
with smoke.
Yeah, you see Michael Whiting in the 44 machine right there, in that green and black 44, coming to a halt against the inside wall. Man, 27 of Harnish tried to save it. And Carlos, what did we talk about? The Jordan Harnish has the pace, just hasn't been able to cross the T's, dot the I's this season. It definitely is going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out at the end of the race. Now, folks, up at the front of the field, it is now Greg Evans, who is the race leader. Brian Yazik in second in the HPPsimulation.com Ford. So Evans was able to make that pass for the race lead, the winner of 3 races this season. Johnny Avila in the number 63, still sitting in third. He will definitely feel like he wasn't the cause of that caution at this point of the race, so he continues to ride in third. Tyler Seville in fourth. Jonathan Cadell is in fifth. So that's your top 5 right now as things continue to shuffle on through.
So
but we have to remember Brian Yazik, it has those older tires up there in the top 5, Carlos.
So this brings me to something I wanted to mention before the last restart. I get a chance to, because I personally cannot blame Avila. I cannot blame the 27. That was just a racing accident. It's something that's going to happen when you're put in that situation. But I wanted to bring up the kind of like the ethical conversation of, you have no tires. Do you want to put yourself in that position by staying out? I'm not saying I agree on one way or another. I'm just saying, like, thinking about it like this ethical conversation of you having literally no chance of winning this race. Do you want to keep yourself up in the front and then, hope that everything goes for the best because you're going to get passed? Or do you either go down pit road and just stop there and let everybody go by, or ask for an end of line? That's kind of a weird thing, because I can't blame the 27. I also can't blame Avila. He's stuck there. He needs to win this race, and that the only way he can get out of situations is by going to the inside. Unfortunately, that you're going to get that. But that's just a question you have to think about on what would you do in those situations. Personally, I'm not a championship contending driver, so I know right off the bat I would drop to the back. It would have been different if we didn't have green white checkers. I probably could have maybe hoped, but in my case, I would have dropped to the back. But also, I can't blame the 27 or the other drivers who were up in the front there to decide to stay out, because that's fine. It's just a question that people need to think about.
Well, it definitely is. It's one of those things where if you're on older tires, you have to be mindful of the fact that you're on older tires. You're not going to be able to race around the other cars like you can if you're on fresh tires. So that's just something. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I would have probably done the same thing Clarence Bonner did. You just have to be mindful of the fact that you're on older tires and know that you can't hold off people. You really can't hold them off. But speaking of holding them off, the pace car can't hold them off behind him any longer because the green flag waves once again. Greg Evans used that high line to get a big jump on the number 55 of Yazik, trying to keep people pinned down there, Carlos, as Avila in the number 63 now back behind Yazik. We saw the 63 kind of used as a pick, or the other lap cars used as a pick to kind of wipe the 63 off the back bumper of the number 2 machine. And here again, Yazik there in the number 55. Now he's being mindful there, Carlos, of the fact that he has those older tires. He's up the racetrack just a little bit. He's opening up that door for the number 11. Yes, he was racing the 63 hard. He's going to jump down here, but you just got to race your other drivers clean as the white flag is out here at Texas.
Yeah, white flag is out. These guys are rolling, but that 63 has a run. Will the 63 try doing something? It's a bad corner there for the 63. The 2 may just have this one. Could just be a battle for second place. We're going to see on the exit of the corner just who has what it takes to win this race.
And coming out at turn number 4 for the final time, the number 2 of Greg Evans going to make it 4 wins on the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, and the Hacksaw PC's machine goes to victory lane at Texas Motor Speedway. And Tyler Seville, did he just whip out the fastest lap of the race?
Lap.
Yes,
he had it secured, but now he's like, that's just insurance.
Final lap of the race, Tyler Seville ran the fastest lap. That is mighty impressive out of that number 11 machine coming home there on the podium. But we'll pick up the extra bonus point there for picking up that fastest lap right there at the checkered flag. Pretty cool. But 4 wins on the season for the number 2 machine, and it's been Eckrich and Evans' show all season long. The battle of the E's, the 70 and the number 2. Chalk this one for Greg Evans there in the closing laps. Burning it down here on the front stretch, and Carlos, he does it again.
He does. What a fantastic drive by Greg Evans. Was there at the right time, was able to secure and put himself in a position where he can secure a win.
And this isn't the first time he's done that this season. He did that back at Homestead, got that late race win back there. Also at Vegas, he wasn't the fastest there, but was able to get the win late in the race. Greg Evans just knows how to finish races and not make those mistakes, as he does one of those slideways burnouts like we've been seeing Scott Eckrich do over the past couple of weeks.
Scott Eckrich.
How it's done. So Greg Evans going to go to victory lane here at Texas Motor Speedway, and we got some great interviews lined up for you folks here on the channel. I'm really curious to talk to Seville, Avila, and Evans. I think all 3 of those interviews are going to be really exciting here tonight. Just how much intensity there was at the end of this one, Carlos.
Oh, a lot. I at first I thought, Eckrich is going to win the race. He's dominating. It's his. Then caution started coming out. A couple drivers got involved. A couple drivers came. A couple drivers went. Scott Eckrich, unfortunately, was one of those drivers who got shoveled to the back. And then it became it's a battle. It's a 3-way battle, possibly 5 if they check themselves up some more, between Greg Evans, Johnny Avila, and Tyler Seville. Jonathan Goodell was there. Thomas George was there. Even for a while, Will Wursler was there towards the end. Unfortunately, got involved in a wreck. It was an up and down type of situation in terms of excitement. We had no idea just who at the end was going to win, especially with 4 drivers who had no tires, had to start in the front. And that was a definitely interesting scenario that we all saw there. But Peter, why don't you go ahead and go through the finishing results while I pull up the unofficial point standings.
Yeah, and of course we're going to get to talk to those top 3 finishers as well. Greg Evans taking home the win here tonight. Johnny Avila in second. Tyler Seville third. Jonathan Cadell, one of the Steel Horse Racing machines, right in front of his teammate Thomas George there in the number 88, finishing 4th and 5th. Brian Yazik, who, he stayed out on those old tires. And Carlos, to kind of speak to that point, that sometimes it does work out staying on those old tires. He finished down in 6th there at the end, and that's about as good as Yazik was all night long. Jimmy McKee there finishing in 7th in the number 8 machine. Woody Mahan, Braxton DeWeese, who also was on those old tires. And really, all things considered, DeWeese didn't fall that far on those old tires as well. So great job for him to hang out for a top 10, because I think he was kind of flirting with about the 13th position there, kind of after the second green flag pit cycle. Jackson Van Valkenburg there in the 10th spot in the number 12 machine. He was involved in an accident there in the middle of the race. Michael Krobach finishing just outside the top 10. Doug Mullins in 12th. Grant Brown in 13th. Scott Eckrich 14th, led a majority of the race. Danny Gutierrez 15th. Will Wursler 16th in the number 29 machine. Nick Curling. Jamie Moore in 18th. Mitch Brown 19th. Mark Myers 20th. Troy Haight. Jeff Yenish. Jason Stewart. Adam Jersky 24th. Michael Whiting 25th. Kevin Stone in the 26th position, 3 laps down. Then you got Michael Larch, Corey Silva, 27th, 28. Mr. Consistency there. Corey Silva finishing a little bit down the order with that late race incident. Jordan Harnish, 29th, also involved in that late race scuffle. Tim Knott, Pete Baskins, John Eckhart, 30th through 32nd. AJ Digby came into tonight top 10 in points. Gary Reynolds Jr., 34th. Kevin Klein making his series debut here tonight, getting involved in an accident not of his own doing there, 35th. Steve Yenish, tough break for him. He was close to that cut line of 20th place in points to be guaranteed for a start next week. finishing in 36th. Nick Gardner, 37th. Cody Spiker, 38th. Evan Black and Clarence Bonner rounding out your 40 starters here tonight. Richard Fletcher was the alternate and not making the start. But let's see if we can figure out if we got those post-race interviews lined up for you. I think the first one will be the number 11 machine. Let's see if we can get Tyler Seville up here into the 3-wide TV booth. Tyler Seville, Peter Short. 3-wide TV, you got a copy?
Sure do.
Well, I'll tell you what, we talked to you there in the middle of the race, and, about 30 laps to go, and action was really heating up, and it really never calmed down. Definitely, it seemed like the temperature here tonight was at a boiling point at Texas Motor Speedway there at the closing laps. Would you come home third? All things considered, not too bad. You had to deal with some of that lap traffic, or not lap traffic, but the older tires on some of the other traffic around you there in the closing laps. How'd that all work out for you?
I think overall, I'll take a third place, all things considered, with people of the talent level of Scott Eckridge. We work so hard every week, putting in a lot of laps in practice. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but it doesn't help that we get in here and a completely different setup is chosen that we get to run on. So stuff like that, it puts you behind the 8 ball and puts you even further behind someone like Scott Eckridge. But overall, I'm proud to come home with a third place finish. And I know my teammates didn't have the greatest of luck today, but we'll regroup and hopefully they get the setup right for next week.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, like you said, all things considered, coming out with a good finish. And for the people watching at home, tell us about the setup. Tell us about the setup that you practiced with versus the setup here tonight. Was this one looser? Was this one tighter? Kind of give the fans back at home an indication of what you feel as a driver behind the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's looser than what the schedule was. They post early in the week what it's supposed to be. And so this past week, we had 3 or 4 practices for at least an hour each, just getting familiar with the track. This is kind of in my wheelhouse, so I kind of help everyone else out to get them up to speed, and for the most part, it worked out today. It's just difficult to adapt so quickly when you have some of the talent level that you have in here. Like, I know Eckridge had problems, but had he not had problems and we didn't have those late cautions, it would have probably been another 10-plus second victory for him.
Yeah, definitely was kind of a tale of two halves here tonight at Texas Motor Speedway for you, Tyler. But you continue to knock on the door here in the series. And next week we go to Martinsville. And I'm sure, some drivers are really excited to go to Martinsville and others are not. And if my memory serves correct, you've been pretty decent at the short track. So you looking forward to Martinsville?
I am. Will Worsler is like our short track ace, and where I was 2 years ago to where I am now, I've improved like big time, and I credit all that to Will and his ability to get me up to speed there. And I had a pretty good run last fall, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely will be quite a change from what we saw here tonight at the 1.5 mile high banks at Texas Motor Speedway. But before we let you go, you got any shout outs there, Tyler?
Yeah, I had to shout out my new sponsor, Arch Telecom, with that new teal paint scheme that looks amazing on the track. Got to thank High Flow and Wine and Custom Paints and Diecast with Jordan Berry. He helps us out a lot. And got to thank all my teammates for helping out.
Absolutely. Well, we'll let you go, Tyler. Best of luck next week right here on 3 Wide TV, same place, same time at Martinsville.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, we'll let Tyler go celebrate his third place finish as I go down to talk to the number 63 machine of Johnny Avila. And Johnny, it could have been a win here, but you've only been here for a couple of weeks here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series and the American Sim Racing Series. And you've been fast. You're knocking on the door. I know it didn't quite go your way there at the end, kind of getting boxed in, but all things considered, I bet you're really happy with your pace.
Yeah, honestly, being part of this league, these guys are really fast. The competition's good. The battle I had with Greg leading up to the final laps before that yellow flag came out was great. Disappointed that caution came out and I couldn't come home with the win, but it was a fun race. Yeah,
definitely. We actually had one of the people in the chat a little while ago, saying that you must have been enjoying that battle. It was Craig Harris in the chat saying, I bet you that Avila and the two of Evans are so enjoying that battle. And it's so good to hear from you to say that, because I'm a sim racer myself, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching have, seen sim racing. It isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's about having those hard battles, those clean, hard battles out there, and just really, really enjoying racing each other and the racetrack. That's why we do it. We don't go out there to wreck. We don't go out there to pace around. We go out there for those clean battles. And definitely really cool to have you in the series over the last couple of weeks performing really well.
Honestly, I gotta say that battle with the two, I've never had somebody give me the bumper that nicely. Like, usually people hit you, you're in the wall. But the fact that I could still kind of control my car, I gotta respect Greg for that kind of move. I love that type of racing. It's really hard. We're pushing each other, but we're still clean.
Yeah, it was definitely a big battle between you guys there, and throwing some blocks. It's unfortunate, things didn't quite pan out for you at the end of tonight. We had a good, green flag racing, and then all of a sudden, the last half of the race was kind of chaotic. Next week, speaking of chaotic, Martinsville short track. We haven't seen you on the short tracks here. We kind of saw a short track at Phoenix. That's debatable whether or not that's considered a short track or not. But next week's Martinsville, 100%, no argument that is a short track. What are your thoughts about going to a short track next week?
You're probably not going to see me a lot. I'm not good at short tracks. I'm going to try my best, but those races tend to get wild.
We'll definitely get out the steering wheel midweek, get some laps in, and try and get some lap time, some track time before that one. See if we can see you marching up towards the front, but it's going to be a little bit different than a race from what we saw here tonight. Best of luck next week at Martinsville, but before I let you go, you got any shout outs there, Johnny?
I want to shout out my teammates, Jeff and Steve. Jeff actually made the paint scheme I'm running. I also want to thank the league, the admins, everybody running this together, you guys in the booth. I always enjoy, after doing these races, sitting back, rewatching it. It's a great time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for jumping up here in the booth there, Johnny. Congratulations on your second place finish, and who knows, it might not be long before we see you back in victory lane here on 3YTV. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, well, now we get to go talk to Greg Evans. Fourth time this season that he has finished atop the leaderboard, Greg. And here tonight, it didn't look like it was going to go your way till right there at the end. Tell us about your night.
Had a pretty good night. Didn't qualify where we want to, but that's kind of a normal thing now for us. I know we had a fast car on the long run. We were just kind of biding our time. I knew we didn't really have anything for Eckridge on that green flag run. Then we got those cautions. And I'm not really sure what happened to him, but I knew he got moved back, and we just kind of played our cards the last 30-40 laps with all the cautions and stuff, and just put ourselves in position to go for the win. Luckily those cars stayed out whenever we pitted. I didn't really know what the right call was there, but I really figured everybody's gonna take tires, but we were able to work our way through those guys who stayed out on that last caution and put ourselves in position to win the race, and just played into our hands. I don't think we had the car to beat tonight, but just seemed to play out for us again tonight.
Yeah, not the first time we've heard that out of you, that didn't quite think you had the running car, but you end up in victory lane nonetheless. In fact, going back to that restart where you were able to get to the race lead, Carlos asked me whether I wanted to be on the high line or the low line. And I liked where you were. It tends to be a 50-50 thing, whether or not you want to be on the low line there, in around the 5th position or the 6th position on the high line, because you can somewhat get boxed in on the low line. But it all worked out for you fabulously there. And of course, your 4th win on the season. And we know you're good at Martinsville next week. You're looking to make it 5 next week.
Really, I love Martinsville. We've always ran pretty good there. We got a lot of new guys here, though. So we'll kind of have to see where we play out at Martinsville. But yeah, going back to that restart, I really wanted to be on the bottom all night long, except for that last restart. I figured with those guys staying out on tires that everybody would be fighting for the bottom, and it might open up the top. It didn't play out that way, the way we thought it was going to. But coming off turn 2, we had a chance to go to the middle, and and it just, I think I knew Harness was probably going to try to guard the bottom, so I knew if we could get to the outside of the 63, that we could probably clear him and at least get to the outside of Harness and have a chance to clear him going into 1. And it just all kind of, like I said, just all kind of played into our hands tonight.
Absolutely, it did. And folks, if you're wondering where Greg Evans finished last year at Martinsville, well, he was runner-up, and the winner of that race from last season, David Washington, will not be in the field next week. So I think odds-on favorite for next week is the man sitting right next to me, the number 2 Mobile. But I know you always have shout-outs here on 3 Wide TV, Greg, so let's hear them.
I think Hacksaw PC. Like I said, they gave us this computer from last year, win the championship, and man, it is an amazing computer. If you need a computer, definitely go to Nick. Sam Maxwell Customs for the wheel, Maverick Concepts, iRacing, iFlag, Freightliner. All my guys from Steel Horse Racing, Cadell and George had a really good night again tonight. So we're starting to make some progress as a team together. We've been teammates for a long time, but it's definitely got to thank those guys, and thank you guys for hosting.
Absolutely, definitely a fun one here on 3 Wide TV. A wild night at the Texas Motor Speedway. We called it No Limits Texas, and it was definitely no limits for a reason here tonight, Greg. Congratulations on win number 4 on the season, and who knows, might get to talk to you next week at Martinsville. Best of luck.
Sounds good, guys. And like I said, thank you again for broadcasting, and thanks to Jim and Sam for hosting the races for us. Those guys give a lot to sit back and watch us race, and not participate themselves. So thank those guys as well, and hope you guys have a good Easter and a good week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Greg. We do appreciate that. And folks, we'll be right back here, of course, next week, same time, same place here on 3 Wide TV for that action at Martinsville. And like we mentioned it, if you want to reach out and sponsor that race, I believe that is one race that is still open for sponsorship. So definitely jump on board, reach out to anyone in the American Sim Racing Series if you're interested in sponsoring next week event right here on 3 Wide TV. But a wild and zany night here at Texas. Carlos, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, the current unofficial point standings. I hit the show
hey,
button.
why don't you bring those up?
There we go. Sorry, I turned off the overlay because a little annoying thing that happens at the end of the race. But hey, so unofficially, this is unofficial, okay? Greg Evans will retain the points lead.
You sure?
Yeah. This is only race points. This does not. We are not adding any bonus points such as leading laps, fastest lap, and finishing a race with 0 incident points. Currently, Greg Evans would have the lead, expecting 6 or 7 more, probably about 6 more bonus points. Probably put him over 300. Scott Eckridge in second, Tyler Seville in third. Remember, for sure, he is going to have 1 more bonus point, and that's going to be fastest lap. So at the minimum, he's going to have 247. Doug Mullins in third. That's an improvement from last week. Jimmy McKee, a really good improvement from last week. In fifth, Corey Silva, unofficially 6th. Michael Korbach 7th. Brian Yazik 8th. Will Worcester going to be dropping a couple based on that incident in 9th. And AJ Digby also dropping a couple based on incidents in 10th. Thomas George looking to move up in this week with 11th. Jason Stewart 12th, Adam Jersky 13th, Jordan Harnish 14th, Grant Brown 15th. Some of these drivers did not have good races or good finishing results. Troy Haight currently in 16th, Alan Young in 17th, and 18th currently looking at Danny Gutierrez. So you're seeing the points start to separate a little now, but for the time being, it's looking like we're going to be getting a good picture who we're going to be seeing in that championship battles.
Absolutely. We move one race closer to the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series playoffs here on 3 Wide TV towards the end of the season. But folks, got to give a huge shout out to, of course, Hacksaw PCs for jumping on board for the series sponsorship. Dirty Bird Sim Racing for sponsoring tonight's race here, all 250 miles at the Texas Motor Speedway, as well as all of the other series sponsors here, the American Sim Racing Series, as well as our friends over at Sim TV for the camera package that we bring you here on the channel each and every week. But Carlos, I think that's going to do it for us here in the Lone Star State. So we'll see you guys up in Virginia next week for the American Sim Racing Series, Martinsville 200, right here, same place, same time. Have a good night, stay safe, and we shall see ya.